Because of his jealousy toward his genius, younger brother Logan impulsively harmed him in a moment of madness and was cast out of the family by his father. 10 years later, he tried to return to make amends, but it was all too late. Logan's brother had been executed for rebelling against the Empire, and their entire family had been wiped out. In the end, Logan strapped bombs to himself and died in a suicide attack, along with the Imperial forces to avenge his family. However, he didn't end up meeting his ancestors. Instead, he regressed and returned to the past. Lying on his bed, Logan heard a familiar voice, a voice he hadn't heard in over 10 years. This young boy was Logan's younger brother, Ronyan. Logan instantly realized this was the exact moment he had just been defeated by his brother in a duel. In his previous life, Logan had thrown a pillow at his brother's face and shouted insults at him, screaming, "Get out! Leave, you're nothing but a child of a concubine anyway." Logan's heart ached involuntarily. Such a kind-hearted boy had ultimately met a tragic end. Logan offered a sincere apology from the bottom of his heart and hugged Ronyan tightly, weeping. This made the little boy tear up, moved by the gesture. This was the hug Logan had been waiting decades for. After that, the two brothers cried together until their eyes were swollen before saying goodbye, promising to meet again the next day. Logan thought, if all of this isn't a dream, if he really has returned to the past, he must change everything to save his family. Afterward, Logan asked the servant Rick to get him some paper and a pen, and he thanked him. However, hearing his young master thank him for the first time, Rick was slightly terrified. He kept asking if Logan's head injury had flared up again, which made Logan snap and kick Rick out. Only then did Rick breathe a sigh of relief. "My hot-headed young master is finally back to normal. What kind of servant is that? They don't listen when you're nice, but love getting yelled at." It's absurd, but it was because in the past, Logan was hot-tempered and constantly cursed at the servants. The most important thing now was to write down everything that would happen in the future. The war against the Empire would break out in 10 years. This catastrophe not only destroyed Logan's family, but also ruined the entire nation. My goal is to prevent that from happening. But before that, the territorial war will happen in 1 year. It will start suddenly destroying part of the family, and as a result, Logan's family will fall into a dark era. Therefore, the most critical thing right now is to stop that from happening. Deep inside a room, the tall, imposing figure of a man stood looking out the window. Suddenly, a servant's voice announced that the eldest young master wished to see the family head. This man was Logan's father and the head of the Macklin family. Outside, the servants were avoiding Logan like a plague. Whenever he walked by, everyone nearby was terrified and scrambled to leave. It seemed that in the servants' eyes, he was an incredibly dangerous monster. A maid was walking too fast, tripped and dropped everything on the floor. While she was terrified, someone reached out a hand and asked, "Are you okay?" The girl grabbed his hand, looked up, and was about to thank him, but her eyes widened in shock. The person standing before her was young Master Logan. He was trying to smile kindly, but to the maid it looked very strange. Seeing that, she immediately knelt and begged the young master to spare her life. I guess changing into a different person overnight is a bit weird. They probably need time to get used to it. I just need to slowly show them that I've changed. I mean, I'm handsome, right? It can't be, because my smile looks too awkward, right? Or is that what handsome looks like now? A while later, Logan was led by the servant to the family head's office. "Master, the eldest young master is here to see you." In his previous life, Logan had harbored resentment toward his father. After being kicked out of the house, that cold man had given up all the expectations he once had for his son and didn't even bother to check on him after he collapsed from the duel. Logan used to think he was a cold-hearted, cruel father who abandoned his own son. But that thought was truly foolish. How much pain must a parent feel? To have to cast their own child out of the house. The door opened and Logan saw his father again after more than a decade of separation. "Father, it's me, Logan." The man heard his voice and slowly turned to face his son. Logan looked at his father with tear-filled eyes. "Everything that happened back then, I am truly sorry." This man was the head of the Macklin family, Patrick. He asked Logan why he wanted to see him. Even though he knew what to expect, Logan still found his father too cold. But that was understandable. To him, it felt like 20 years of longing, but to his father, it was just another daily meeting. Logan told his father that this time, he wanted permission to train alone at the family's training grounds. What did Logan need to do to win the territorial war? The answer was simple. It was to boost combat strength and improve the weapons and equipment of the troops across the territory. For all that to happen, Logan needed a lot of money, an enormous amount, of military funds to build an army. But the Macklin family was famous throughout the kingdom for being beggar-like wealthy, so he had to find a way to earn military funds from the outside. There is a way to earn a lot of money immediately. An event taking place 3 months from now could earn enough to cover the family's entire annual budget in one go. To prepare for that, Logan needed to hone his own martial arts skills. The family head asked if Logan wanted to run away because he lost to his younger brother. Logan said it wasn't like that. It was just, "I've realized my past shortcomings, so now I want to try to improve myself." I said it as if a lack of effort was the only reason. "I suppose you still haven't fully regained your senses, have you? You've also realized that your past behavior—" "Honestly, I'm tired. I've heard you say that many times." Continued. "Throughout this time, instead of reflecting on your own weaknesses, you've been taking your anger out on others. You've been very impulsive and reckless. Through this training, I want to gain control over those things. So please accept my request, Father." It seems this time it wasn't just a hollow excuse. "How long do you intend to train for?" "About 3 months, Father. I will have those things under control, so please, Father, accept my request." It seems this time it's not just a hollow excuse. "How long do you intend to train?" "About 3 months, Father." "Do you think that amount of time is enough to catch up to Ronin?" "I'm not saying to defeat him. I just want to push myself as hard as I can within that limited time frame, I guess." "You've really changed a little. I'll allow it." "Thank you, Father." "But hey, Logan, it's still spring right now. Sleeping on the ground of the family cemetery will be very cold, so remember to keep warm." So Logan's father wasn't as cold-hearted as he had thought. Hidden behind that solemn exterior, he still cared deeply for his son. A few days later, Logan arrived at the family's training grounds. Only direct descendants of the Macklin family are allowed to enter, so there's no one here at all. The important thing is that this place is extremely spacious, perfect for training alone. Logan started rummaging through his bag. He still couldn't let anyone see this training method. Then, Logan pulled out an old worn-out book. On the cover, there were a few tears. This was the legendary sword technique he had memorized in his past life before burning the book. So the Empire couldn't lay a finger on it, not even in the slightest. Originally, the cover had an embroidered falcon. It contained the secret arts of a hero from ancient times, the one who destroyed the dragon that once ruled the entire world. Logan had transcribed it in the Independence Army's code, so no one could read it. If this secret manual is real, then, once I master it, even the Aura Masters or the mages of the Empire won't be scary anymore. Before I regressed, I was too old and didn't have enough talent, but now I have the opportunity. Using internal energy to regulate the body is the basic foundation of the sword technique. After that, focus your internal energy toward the heart to form a core. For those with average talent, this is very difficult. In the past, Logan failed right at this stage. However, after regressing, his internal energy had been raised to a new level. At first, Logan thought creating the core would take at least 3 days, but he didn't expect it to take only 3 minutes. The speed was much faster than he had imagined. As the core formed, a dense surge of energy erupted and covered his entire body like cool rain after a drought. If the training method in the book is correct, then those Imperial bastards can forget about messing with me. Logan picked up his sword, preparing to test just how much he had improved. His feet suddenly stomped hard into the ground, creating cracks. His eyes became sharp like a sword just pulled from its sheath. Logan immediately swung his blade, creating sword. Kai that swept through everything in its path. Logan's physique and senses had changed drastically, perfectly suited for sword training. Even though he didn't expect the core to form so quickly at this rate. 3 months from now, he would definitely be much stronger than he is today. The more he thought, the more excited he got. Logan practiced tirelessly. He trained from when the sun was high until it was pitch black before stopping to rest. Time flew by. Today is the final day of the 3-month deadline. This time, Logan wants to test a new skill, one of the 10 sword techniques recorded in the secret documents. It is a technique capable of cutting through space and time. Its name is Space-Time Slash. Logan held the sword with both hands, using the only core he had, a 1-star core. The only technique he could use was the first form Windrider Wavebreaker. A single strike released a sharp sword key heading toward an ancient tree. There was a loud explosion that shook the whole forest, sending rocks and dirt flying through the clouds of dust. Logan sat down on the ground out of breath, but he was very happy because he had mastered the first form. In front of him, the massive ancient tree that had lived for over 100 years had been sliced in two by a single strike. Logan looked up to the sky and laughed. Such power far exceeded what he had imagined. This isn't a technique that someone just starting to use internal energy could pull off. After unleashing that blow, he was exhausted, but as a trump card, it's still fine. To this extent, Logan had finished his training goal. Next, I can flex to my old man and make his jaw drop. But first, Logan needs to take a bath. These clothes smell terrible. However, just as Logan returned to the family estate, he got into a dispute with the guards. "I'm sorry, but you cannot meet the Lord. Please leave, young Master Logan." He tried to suppress his anger. Calmly, he asked, "Why won't you let me in? Is my father sick?" The punk still had an arrogant look on his face. "The family rules are clear. Even if you are bloodkin, you cannot demand to see him without prior notice." Rick mentioned that this rule had indeed been in place for hundreds of years. Logan wondered, 3 months ago, I was meeting him just fine though. If so, that means the guard at the time failed to carry out his assigned duties, young master. At this moment, Logan suddenly heard a very faint sound ringing in his ears coming from inside the mansion. It must be the soldiers spreading rumors about him. They were gathering and gossiping about Logan, a coward who ran away after losing to his younger brother. It seems Logan's reputation had hit rock bottom. While he was out training by himself, even a random swordsman of the family dared to look down on him. Logan slowly reached his hand into his pocket and asked the punk for his name. Even though he didn't understand what Logan was doing, he still replied, "My name is Dominion, young master. Dominion, you blocked me from seeing my father by using a rule that has long been abandoned. You have also repeatedly humiliated me with that insolent attitude of yours. To repay the disgrace you've caused, I, Logan Macklin, formally challenge you to a duel." Then he slammed his glove into the man's face. "Why aren't you answering me, Dominion? Are you scared? To think you'd be such a coward in front of someone rumored to be a weakling. You must be past your prime, huh?" Provoked like that, Dominion accepted Logan's challenge. Afterward, both went to a spacious area to trade a few basic martial arts moves. The soldiers began to gossip. Is he really planning to fight a knight? This time, the young master is going to lose for sure. Do you remember when he got absolutely wrecked by that Ronin? I heard he went into hiding for 3 months just to dodge that Ronin. I honestly didn't think that coward would even last this long. How much longer? I bet 50 gold coins he won't last 10 minutes. I bet 100. He won't even make it to 5. Domian gritted his teeth as he spoke to Logan. "Be careful not to get hurt," Logan said with a mocking smile, because now he was no longer the weak Logan of the past. After 3 months of training, he was much stronger. Rick and the other servants stood on the sidelines, incredibly worried for Logan. They couldn't understand why their young master would dare to challenge a family knight. Another knight was appointed as the referee and announced that the match between the two would begin immediately. For safety, they could only use wooden weapons. The referee thought to himself, "The young master is too stubborn. There's nothing I can do. I've already limited the weapons. But knights are naturally geared toward raw power, so even with wooden weapons they are incredibly dangerous. No matter what happened, it wouldn't be his responsibility. Domian, please go easy on him. The match started. Both immediately took their fighting stances. Domian's entire body quickly radiated a tremendously powerful aura. You aren't seriously planning to go all out. Are you using full force against a normal person? Is he really going to give it his all? Isn't that considered cheating? If the young master gets hit by that, he's in trouble. But Logan's expression remained calm, as if nothing was wrong. It was honestly a bit scary if you didn't understand the situation. But that was a sign that he was using his strength very clumsily. His energy was leaking out because he couldn't control it. Seeing that, Logan added a few more sarcastic remarks to provoke Domian. You seem pretty tense, don't you? Did someone make you mad? Looks like you're past your prime, huh? Being mocked like that, he was absolutely furious. Gritting his teeth, Domian lunged with full speed, determined to teach Logan a lesson. Rick and the referee were terrified. Both wanted to intervene, but since this was a battle requested by the young master himself, there was no way to stop it. At that moment, Domian thought, I'll finish you off with my secret technique, the splitting wave. But Logan just gave his wooden sword a light swing and easily broke his technique. One strike. It looked very gentle, but it made Domian hurt so much, his face twisted, and he was sweating buckets. Logan looked at him coldly. You call yourself a knight. Don't tell me that was you going all out. The result of the match left everyone completely shocked. The guards and servants couldn't believe it. Since when had their young master become this strong? Feeling that the fight wasn't satisfying enough, Logan wanted to give his opponent another chance. The referee asked Domian what he thought about that. As long as he agreed, the two would have a rematch. Domian looked at his trembling hands, unable to believe he had lost to a kid. He shouted angrily, Impossible! He agreed to Logan's request for a rematch to teach him a lesson, but in the second round, Domian was still being toyed with by Logan. Finally, he failed in a humiliating way. This time, Domian didn't dare to act arrogant anymore. He lowered his head to accept defeat, but Logan didn't let it slide. He straight up smacked him in the face with his sword. I've been too lenient with a subordinate who dares to betray his master. Now it's time for some punishment. After that, Logan used his wooden sword to beat Domian repeatedly, like he was a punching bag, despite the man begging for mercy. The servants watching felt the pain for him. Is this really the young master? How could he have changed this much in just 3 months? His inner energy has awakened, and even his swordsmanship has completely transformed. It's as if he's been a swordsman for decades. The battle ended, and the referee declared young Master Logan the winner. In the family lord's room, Patrick was praising his son. That was an impressive match. It seems you've awakened. What happened during your training? It turned out he had been watching the whole time. I just intended to let go of my greed and throw everything away. While training with the mindset of doing that, I felt my inner energy overflowing to the point where I couldn't believe it. It might sound like a lie, but this is what I concluded from my past life. Only when I gave up everything to seek revenge for my family was I able to become a stronger person. I only realized that after living a wandering life until I was 40. The family lord said to Logan, "You have completely changed." But after realizing that, the first thing you did was, I'd go and insult a knight. He deserved it. You heard the whole story from the soldiers, didn't you, father? That's true. Still, I have to ask you, was it really necessary to go that far? Facing his father's question, Logan remained firm, saying he had to do it. A knight dared to mock the descendant of his master. If he wasn't punished, he could not become a bad example for the family. The hierarchy is the pillar that allows an organization to function. When that system wobbles, the organization wobbles with it. In the end, everything will collapse. A knight needs to respect his master. Today's event will be a lesson for the other knights. At this point, Lord Patrick said, Domian did indeed make a very serious mistake because he forgot his duty and tried to deceive you. But that was a huge gamble. Next time, show some restraint." Logan thought to himself, "The old man is letting me off that easily. I'm not saying you were right. Don't make a mistake. You are not allowed to do anything like that again. That is, without my permission, you hear? You haven't been officially granted your rank yet, and there's something else you need to know. Your fiancée Rena will be visiting our home soon." Hearing the name Rena, Logan was so moved he couldn't even speak. "She's finally coming. My money tree is arriving soon." That day, Lady Rena's carriage arrived at the Macklin estate. The lady's beauty not only had the maids whispering in awe, but also made the guards blush. The young master is truly lucky. This beautiful girl with platinum hair was Rena Wolf. She politely bowed to the family head, Patrick, and asked after everyone's health. The family head was very pleased. Seeing his future daughter-in-law was both sensible and gentle. Rick had seen Rena when she was a child. He never expected that after only a few years, she would have grown into such a beautiful young lady. However, for some reason, ever since he saw Rena, Logan's face had been as tense as a tightrope. "I shall read the letter that the Count has entrusted me to deliver to my dear friend, Baron Patrick Macklin. I wish to propose that we dissolve this arranged marriage." So Rena's visit to the Macklin estate was actually to call off the engagement with Logan. This plot, it feels so familiar. A loser being dumped by his fiancée, right? The letter is full of flowery language, but it hides the main point deep inside. I thought Patrick Macklin would become an aura user, but he's been stuck at the high-grade knight level for 20 years. Honestly, your son is just pathetic. Is there any reason for us to lower our standards for a son-in-law? So let's just go our separate ways. Goodbye. Family head Patrick was extremely furious. Breaking off this marriage without a legitimate reason is the Wolf family trying to humiliate the Macklin family. We would never dare, Baron. I even volunteered to be the messenger because I was worried you might misunderstand. That is why I came to resolve this misunderstanding in person. I still remember the wonderful year I spent here during my childhood, the memories I created with young Master Logan in this beautiful, peaceful place. But unfortunately, I was tied down by my own family and had no choice but to follow their orders. So I thought it best to meet you and young Master Logan. How to apologize in person. The surrounding maids were moved to tears, thinking Lady Rena's heart was as beautiful as her face. But, like heck it is. Logan didn't believe a word of that nonsense. It's obvious that girl is just putting on an act. At this moment, the woman standing beside Logan spoke up. What is the exact reason for this, Lady Rena? I would love to hear about this unavoidable situation. She was Marion Kairos, the birth mother of Ronan and Logan's stepmother. Logan always thought his stepmother saw him as an enemy due to inheritance issues. Surprisingly, this time she was defending him for the sake of the family's honor. I am deeply sorry. I myself do not know the reason, so my hands are tied. I am just someone who will be engaged. And soon become part of another family, so my father doesn't discuss the family's important matters with me. So you came here just to announce that you are breaking an engagement for no reason at all. I suppose we could say that, couldn't we? Rena didn't expect Lady Marion to be such a tough nut to crack. She announced that in exchange for the terms of dissolving the engagement, the Wolf family would compensate the Macklin family with 3 million gold coins. Upon hearing that number, the Macklin family's treasurer was shocked, as it was a massive amount of money. Logan also smiled happily. As long as there was money involved, he didn't care how the engagement was called off. Unexpectedly, family head Patrick reacted violently to this. He roared in anger. How dare the Wolf family do this? The killing intent radiating from him made the guards struggle to stay standing. Lady Rena's bodyguard quickly stepped in front of her. He introduced himself as Rockford, a knight from the Wolf family. He hoped Baron Patrick would calm down and continue the conversation. You are a high-grade knight, just like me. Quite impressive for your age. I suppose the rising star of the Wolf family will be a fair price for the insult to the Macklin family's honor. My clan leader said that you are a man who values honor, Baron Macklin. He also said that you would not harm a lady or a young sprout of our family. We have no intention of buying your honor with money. Please accept it as a sincere gesture to preserve the relationship between our two families. If I go any further, I will be seen as Hanati Tontidade, a man without honor. Is that what you were aiming for when you sent these youngsters here, Kirin Wolf? Family head Patrick said to Rina, if you want to break the engagement, I only have one condition. You must apologize directly to my son. Furthermore, I refuse any other compensation. At this point, Logan suddenly spoke up, asking his father for permission to speak as the person directly involved in the engagement. Is the old man actually going to let them apologize without taking the money? Is he crazy? 3 million gold is the entire year's budget for the Macklin family. Faced with the survival of his family honor no longer mattered. Logan had to get that money at any cost. He told his father he wanted to accept the Wolf family's apology. This made Patrick extremely angry. Are you saying you want me to go back on my word, Logan? The Macklin family is not so poor that we have to sacrifice our honor for money. Facing his father, Logan took a deep breath. No, father, our family is actually very poor. We owe the bank 3 million gold. The annual interest rate is 150,000 gold. Without help from stepmother's Kairos family, we might have gone bankrupt by now. The biggest beggar family in the kingdom. We are so poor, so broke that we don't have a single coin. Actually, Logan was just imagining this, but truthfully, if he said that the old man would have smacked him in the face without missing a beat. The reason? We must accept this 3 million gold is entirely related to our honor. So are you saying I have to go back on my word for the sake of honor? Forgive me, but the Wolf family has a higher standing and status than ours, and the Count is also a border guardian of the East. I fear that the end result will be, we must accept these 3 million gold coins. This is entirely a matter of our honor. So are you saying I should go back on my word for the sake of honor? Forgive me, but the Wolf family holds a higher status than ours, and the Count is also a frontier commander of the East. I fear that the outcome, just this one apology, will lead to rumors that we bowed down to the Wolf family. Rina hurriedly explained, the Wolf clan would never do something so irrational. We have the utmost respect for the Macklin family's honor. You come here demanding to break off an engagement, yet you dare to talk about irrationality. Don't you see how ridiculous you look? In his previous life, Logan had once been played by this girl. She played him for a fool. Just thinking about it still leaves a bitter taste. You think someone like you is worthy of standing by my side, know your place, and get lost? Losing to a mere kid, why are you still holding that sword? Back then, Rina had torn her own clothes to frame Logan for attempted assault. Because his reputation was already poor, no one believed he was innocent. As a result, the Macklin family was forced to apologize to the Wolf family and pay a massive price. Because of Rina's lesson, Logan never trusts women again, especially beautiful ones, as they are the most skilled at deceiving others. He guessed she was just here to get a free ride and then run off with the engagement annulment just like last time, but she wouldn't get away with it this time. There were only 9 months left until the Civil War. Logan no longer cared about his personal reputation. Miss Rina, regardless of my family's wishes, I still accept the compensation. Lord Patrick was furious to hear his son say this. How dare you go against my will? But Logan stood firm. Why apologize when honor can be compensated for with just a few empty words? If that's the case, our family's honor isn't worth much. We, the Wolf family, will follow your word, Baron. So what is your decision? Though she said that she only wanted to save face for her father. She had brought this trouble on herself the moment she thought about paying 3 million. Lord Patrick declared, as the representative of the Macklin house, a sincere apology is enough for me, but I will let Logan decide if it is truly sincere. Think carefully, Logan. If you accept the compensation, it means your honor in the future will also be something that can be bought and sold. Logan whispered to himself, I'm sorry, father, but I cannot give in. As the person directly involved in this broken engagement, I accept the compensation from the wolf family." This decision made the stepmother very pleased. With such foolish behavior, Logan was no longer qualified to compete for the inheritance against her son. Rena, meanwhile, was red with fury, unable to believe that even after she had spoken like that, Logan was still stubborn enough to take the money. Lord Patrick turned away in disappointment. "I thought you had changed, but it turns out you are getting worse. It must be my fault. I failed to teach you the true value of honor." Although he was misunderstood by his father, Logan did not explain. He was doing all of this to save the family. And just like that, the 3 million gold coins finally reached Logan. "Stay calm, don't get too excited. I need to save this money." Just then, the family's financial officer suddenly approached him. He spoke to Logan with extreme politeness. Logan thought to himself, "This isn't good. The old man is being so friendly. Don't tell me he wants to borrow my money." As the financial manager for the Macklin house, Funeral had been running the entire territory with an increasingly tight budget. He often had to cover the deficits by begging the clan leader's relatives. "I don't know if I'm a butler or the leader of a beggar gang anymore." If this weren't his home, he would have retired already. But now Funeral saw a chance to live comfortably for a few more years. In his eyes, Logan was just a stupid brat who was still wet behind the ears. "Sorry, young master, but you'll have to share those 3 million with me." And then, Funeral started showering Logan with endless praise, calling him handsome, talented, and all sorts of things, claiming he was the perfect heir. After rambling for a while, Funeral got to the point. "In these difficult times, 3 million gold coins are like rain in the desert. Your wisdom has allowed our family to finally breathe a sigh of relief, young master." "Why relief? This is my own private money." Funeral was rendered speechless by his reply. However, he wasn't going to give up so easily. The lady revealed that the Macklin family owed the bank 3 million gold coins, with annual interest reaching 150,000 gold. But Logan had known that for a long time. It's harvest season now, so the interest can definitely be paid off. "Running a baron's territory costs money, young master, and our budget is always stretched thin." Before he could finish, Logan refused. "Sorry, but I can't help you. I intend to use this money for the family's sake, not to cover operating costs. One must know how to look at the big picture and not lose sight of the long-term goal just for something trivial." Funeral thought, "I've been working here for decades, and I've never seen this kid care about the family before." Logan asked him, "Even if I use this money to pay off the debt, what benefit would that bring to this family?" Funeral replied that they would have more budget for the next few years, making it easier to run the territory. But when Logan asked, "And then what?" he couldn't answer. "Then, let me tell you, our family will just fall into debt again. This is an endless loop. I am trying to break it, so I will use this money for my own plan." At that moment, the image of the stupid young master in Funeral's mind completely changed. From a heartless person who didn't care about family affairs, Logan had truly matured and learned to think for the family. "By the way, I have a favor to ask. If you help me, I might contribute money to cover some family expenses. I need you to find me some mercenaries." The next day, seeing Logan getting geared up to go somewhere, Rick couldn't help but ask, "Where are you going, young master?" "Obviously, I'm going to make some money." "Didn't you just have a whole mountain of gold, my lord?" "But I need more than that. I bet the lord won't agree, and the air in the mansion is so suffocating." "Obviously. That's why I'm planning to run away. If my reputation can't be turned around right away, I won't get anything done staying here. I have to build my own power base outside. Luckily, I've gotten used to the situation out there during this time. Ever since I was kicked out of the family, I've traveled all over the kingdom. First things first, I have to recruit that person." Rick, hearing Logan say this, thought his young master was planning to ditch the old man and run away from home. "If you run off, what am I supposed to do? If you want to leave, you'll have to go over my dead body." "Don't worry, I'll leave a letter for father." "No, nobody's going to blame you." Afterward, Lord Patrick read the letter from his spoiled brat of a son before he ran off, his eyes burning with killing intent. To father, I'm heartbroken after the engagement was called off. So I've decided to go out and clear my head. I'll be back soon. 200 years ago, the McLean family wasn't as pathetic as it is now. Possessing an incredibly vast territory, the McLean family was revered as rulers and lords of the southwestern region of the Grandia Kingdom. But by the time of the current Lord Patrick, the useless products produced by the 3 generations of ancestors before him had dragged the family's status down. The territory's area also shrank significantly. Fertile lands were handed over to other vassals. In the end, the McLean family had to live on harsh, barren land in the southern mountains. This territory has nothing. No local products, no crops, and no ore mines, things that are common in the mountains. Because of this, even though the McLean family won the Civil War, they still needed constant aid from my stepmother's family to end this vicious cycle. Logan needs a lot of money, a number much larger than the 3 million gold he currently has. There is someone here who can give him that amount, the largest commercial city in the Grandia Kingdom. According to his memories, this man spent the prime of his life here. People said he lived somewhere around here. Golden Bug, Philip Cloud. He was one of the wealthiest merchants, but he moved to live in the Empire. He was called a traitor because he was a citizen of the Grandia Kingdom, but he worked for the Aras Empire. The Aras Empire is the strongest nation on the continent. As long as you have talent regardless of age or gender, you will be valued. This is a country where people can enjoy power and wealth. Those rights even extend to outsiders, those who aren't citizens of the Empire. A perfect example of that is Philip Cloud from the Grandia Kingdom. Despite being called a traitor, Philip still frequently supports his fellow countrymen. Logan heard that his business failed because he was scammed, but seeing him in person, it's even more pathetic than he imagined. Logan stepped toward the man, who was slumped on the ground, and asked, "Are you Philip?" Hearing someone looking for him, Philip stood up immediately and sized up the young man in front of him. In that moment, Philip felt an intense emotion in Logan's eyes. It was an emotion that Philip as a businessman had encountered countless times: ambition. Before Logan could even speak, Philip shouted, "My payment isn't due yet. Come back in 3 days." It turns out, Philip misunderstood Logan for one of his creditors coming to collect. Seeing Philip bristling like an angry little puppy, Logan didn't know how to calm him down. "I didn't come to collect money from you. Why are you so on edge? Please calm down, Philip. I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to invest." Hearing this, Philip finally stopped yelling. But he thought Logan had lost his mind, because only a madman would want to invest in someone who had completely lost everything like him. But not knowing what else to do, Philip still asked, "How much are you planning to invest?" Logan said he would support enough for him to pay off his debts and get back to work. Philip was so happy to hear that, thinking he had met a VIP. But right then, Philip accidentally saw the McLean family crest on Logan's armor. His face shifted from radiant to completely despairing. "You brat! How dare you try to scam me? If you want to scam me, you'd better prepare properly, just like the scumbags who scammed me before. You're not an investor. That symbol belongs to the Baron McLean family in the South. That's a family of beggars living off handouts from their in-laws. You're already drowning in debt, so what the hell are you investing?" Then this guy started crying again. When it rains, it pours. Just got scammed out of his entire fortune, and now he runs into a professional con artist. Logan didn't know how to explain it to Philip, then suddenly he came up with an idea. Logan immediately showed Philip his inner energy. Philip knew that someone who could awaken inner energy at such a young age like Logan certainly wasn't ordinary. A genius like that couldn't possibly be a scammer. After that, Philip was happy again and asked what Logan wanted from him. "I want to hire you permanently. Paying off your debt is just a bonus." Philip was a bit suspicious. Does the McLean family really have that much money? Logan immediately dumped his bag of gold onto the ground. The light radiating from the gold dazzled Philip. Logan said he wouldn't just pay off all of Philip's debts, but also give him 300,000 gold. By now, Philip was so moved he couldn't find the words. In Philip's eyes, Logan had turned into an angel saving his life. To be safe, the two made a magical employment contract. As Philip's blood dripped onto the page, the contract officially went into effect. From this moment on, if the subordinate dares to intentionally harm the boss, they will suffer excruciating pain as if their soul is being torn apart. If you don't want that to happen, awaken your inner energy and become at least a high-ranking knight, or pay a massive sum to hire a 4-circle mage to remove the curse. Magic Shop. Goodbye, dear customer. We hope you'll come back and support us next time. Philip thought to himself, I must have been blind earlier to think this guy was an angel. Angel my foot. He wrote a magic contract just to turn me into his slave. He basically bought my freedom. The two couldn't trust each other yet, since this was their first meeting. Since Logan had invested his entire fortune, needing a reasonable guarantee was only natural. Once the two trust each other, that contract won't even be needed anymore. Philip asked Logan what he needs to do now. Logan told him, first start by buying up monster meat. Philip didn't quite understand why. Why would anyone buy poisonous monster meat? But as someone from 20 years in the future, Logan knows exactly how valuable it really is. A few years from now, people will discover that monster blood can be turned into a neutralizing agent using common ingredients. Not only that, but monster meat can treat illnesses if used correctly, and it can even cure infertility. This information was verified by the Royal Magic Tower, so its credibility is beyond question. From that point on, monster meat became a highly sought-after commodity, a species that had disappeared simply because research claimed they were delicious and boosted masculinity. With this, Logan is confident he can make a fortune. Philip thinks to himself, wondering if his boss has lost his mind. Earning money through monster meat. He's hearing this for the first time. Does he plan on selling salted monster thighs like a salted fish merchant? After hearing that Logan wants to invest $1 million in monster meat, Philip hurriedly tries to stop him, saying that would be throwing money out the window. In Philip's eyes, monster meat has absolutely no value. He doesn't understand why Logan wants to buy it, but Logan is his boss, and even if he doesn't grasp Logan's purpose, Philip will still help him. However, Logan maintains a calm expression, asserting that despite the costs, the profits from this investment will be enormous. Even though Philip is still full of doubt, Logan begins to analyze the value of the fish-type monster meat in detail. He argues that since no one lives in that area, people just burn the monster carcasses. If he offers to transport them back, a price of 200 gold coins per trip is perfectly reasonable. Seeing Logan calculate even the transportation costs so meticulously to maximize profit, Philip can only gasp in surprise, which makes Logan slightly self-conscious. Are my calculations wrong? Logan asks, and Philip quickly denies it. He denies it, but still insists that a $1 million budget is excessive. He points out that Logan is heading in the wrong direction, because since monster meat is currently treated as trash instead of buying it directly, he just needs to approach the Hunters Guild and negotiate with merchants who are willing to sell anything for money. They might even give Logan all the fish-type monster meat in the entire kingdom, for a dirt cheap price since it's currently worthless. What a smart way to save money. It even sounds cooler than the original plan. Logan is stunned by this keen insight and thinks that investing in Philip was worth every penny. In front of him, Logan excitedly praises him. That is truly a brilliant idea. Immediately after that, Logan makes a new request. He asks Philip to stay in town to purchase a large quantity of spring shells and wood glue, leaving him confused and asking if Logan intends to manufacture toys. Logan smiles confidently, asserting that it is something far greater than that. Deep down, he knows he cannot reveal that it is a weapon, a piece of gear from his past life that can help a common soldier stand against a knight. Logan silently calculates. After asking Dwight to find mercenaries, he needs to find a blacksmith who can craft this weapon and an instructor to train them. The workload ahead is truly massive. 2 days later, Logan arrives in Harun, a city famous for mercenaries. His target is Kaison, an A-rank mercenary with silver hair and a long scar over his left eye. As soon as they meet, Kai-san looks suspicious and asks, "You want to hire me as an instructor?" He flatly refuses, saying he has never had any serious experience training anyone. Logan remains persistent, arguing that the job isn't difficult because the trainees are just the C-rank mercenaries he's about to hire. However, Kai-san still scratches his head, feeling uneasy. He claims he only knows a few tricks for rookies and advises Logan to seek out real experts. Looking at his expression, Logan thinks to himself that he understands this man well because they worked together in his past life. He knows Kai-san is a master of all weapons and is exceptionally skilled at horse riding. His value would skyrocket if he became an instructor. Logan recalls the mercenary squad that Kai-san once trained, which failed miserably after he retired due to an injury. The reason was that they were too complacent about their abilities. Noticing that his opponent is still not swayed, Logan decides to use money to solve the problem. He smiles confidently and offers a price. "I will pay you 4,000 gold per month." Hearing the word money, the mercenary's professional conviction starts to waver slightly. This number stuns Kai-san, and sweat begins to run down his face because typically, an A-rank mercenary earns at most 2,000 gold per month. Even though Logan has doubled the salary, Kai-san still tries to hold his ground, stating once more that he has never been an instructor. Logan doesn't flinch and continues to raise the price. "Not enough. How about 6,000? Kai-san starts to waver violently. He stammers that he still prefers real combat missions. Seeing that Logan acts disappointed and says, "If that's the case, then I'm out of options." But immediately, he delivers the finishing blow, 7,000. Kai-san, enraged, punches the stone wall until it cracks, roaring, "Are you deaf? Do you think money is everything? How about 8,000 then?" Instantly, Kai-san's attitude changes 180 degrees. He breaks into a radiant smile and excitedly replies, "What idiot said money isn't everything? I hope we have a pleasant collaboration." After successfully recruiting Kai-san, Logan finally reveals the true identity of his employer. His boss is Baron Macklin. Kai-san changes sides so fast that the wall he cracked hadn't even finished settling yet. On the way, Logan curiously asks his new companion, "Aren't you curious about the reason I'm recruiting mercenaries for Macklin, even though it's a godforsaken place?" Kai-san maintains an indifferent attitude and replies bluntly, "As long as you pay, I won't ask anything." This pragmatic response makes Logan extremely satisfied. "I like this way of thinking. The get paid no questions asked mentality saves so much brainpower." Suddenly, the atmosphere becomes tense due to the yelling of a slaver. "Move faster, you idiots, if we're late. I'll make sure you pay for it." The sound of a leather whip cracking repeatedly is followed by screams of pain. Before them is a line of gaunt slaves, their ankles bound by heavy chains, dragging themselves along under the torment of those in power. Kai-san explains in a low voice that everyone knows Harun is dubbed the City of Slaves. He warns that if they continue deeper into this path, Logan will have to witness even more cruel scenes. As they enter the slave market ahead, Logan keeps a calm expression and whispers, "Yeah, I know. I actually plan to buy a slave here." His gaze sweeps over the wretched, malnourished bodies being confined like mere merchandise. Seeing that Logan has the appearance of a wealthy young nobleman, a slave trader with slicked-back blonde hair approaches him secretly, thinking, "This looks like a naive city slicker." He fawningly invites him, "Hey young man, come over here and check out the goods. The slaves here are extremely cheap." But his smile vanished the instant he saw Kai-san standing right behind him. The slave trader turned pale, sweating buckets. Trembling, he stammered, Damn it, why is Kai-san here?" Witnessing the sheer presence of the trainer he'd just hired, Logan smirked, feeling smug. He silently confirmed that recruiting Kai-san was definitely the right call. He was just about to pull a fast one on a customer. But then he bumped into the boss himself, and his nerve completely fizzled out. They stopped in front of a large tent area where Logan noticed more guards patrolling than in any other section. An old man, with silver hair and a cunning look, stepped out to greet them. "What brings you here, young man?" Logan didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "I'm here to buy a dwarf." The old man flashed a mysterious smile. "You guessed right. Slaves of that a race are very rare and require special treatment. This way." Logan followed him silently deep inside. He glided past cages holding beautiful elves, but his expression remained completely indifferent. The slave owner laughed triumphantly, boasting about how hard it was to find these elves, and asked if he had ever seen any before. Suddenly he stopped and shouted, "Oh, now I remember, I've found one." Logan immediately ordered him to bring the person over. A small, hunched figure was led out. The old man confirmed, "You said you were looking for a dwarf, right?" It was an old dwarf with thin, bony legs weighed down by chains. The slave owner kept up the sales pitch. "As you can see, he's a true dwarf. If you buy him, he'll be very useful. He's one of the few master craftsmen of his race." Hearing this, Logan couldn't hide his surprise. He asked straight away, "How much?" This was the legendary dwarf craftsman race people who possessed master-level forging skills and made their living from it. The slave owner added one more firm claim to boost the price. "Moreover, this man is the best smith of them all." Logan smiled with confidence. He affirmed that he didn't need to worry and asked for the price again. "How much for him?" The old man laughed greedily, holding up 2 fingers. "Ha ha ha, I'll give you a special discount. Just 200,000 gold coins. What do you think?" Logan's expression turned terrifying instantly. He snapped, "Do I look stupid to you?" The sudden outburst of rage left the slave owner pale and trembling, having no idea what was happening. Quoting a price like that was essentially highway robbery against a VIP in broad daylight. Frightened by the pressure coming from Logan, the old man hurriedly lowered his price to rock bottom. 50,000 gold. That's it. In just a few short minutes, Logan had successfully negotiated a discount of 150,000 gold. As the group began to leave, the dwarf blacksmith, walking behind them, muttered in contempt, "You humans are truly wicked." Logan just smirked and replied, "That's just business basics." The dwarf asked, confused, "Where are you taking me?" Logan replied calmly, "I'm taking you to the Baron's territory in the southwest, and you will do exactly as I require." "The dwarf," I replied, lost in thought. "I understand." Logan knew that while dwarves were famous for their skills, dwarven slaves were not, because they were never raised in an environment with proper training. To motivate him, he looked the old man in the eye and made a promise. 20 years. If you perform well for the next 20 years, I will take you back to your homeland in the mountains. It sounded like a long time, but basically work for 20 years to change your life. No scam, trust me. He smiled and added, 20 years is nothing for your kind, right? Hearing the chance to return home, the dwarf's eyes brightened. He laughed loudly in excitement. "Ha ha ha. You better not go back on your word." Just as the group was about to leave, the area suddenly erupted into chaos with shouts of, "Grab him, that slave is escaping." A small figure was desperately bolting away. Amidst the thundering footsteps of the pursuers, Logan turned his head in shock just as a young slave boy zoomed past him at incredible speed. The boy braced himself and ran, his face showing clear exhaustion but full of determination. In the moment they crossed paths, Logan was stunned to see unique dual-colored eyes, one glowing red, like fire, the other blue like the ocean. They were burning with an intense thirst for freedom. "Catch him!" The shrill shouting echoed through the entire market as the guards chased a small figure, desperately weaving through the crowd. "That slave is running away!" They roared, causing the crowd to scatter in chaos. The slave boy with messy purple-blue hair used every ounce of his strength to lunge forward. His breathing was ragged, but his eyes shone with ultimate resolve. Running with everything he had, as long as he was breathing, he was fighting. But a child's strength could not escape those seasoned predators. "He's over there!" one guard shouted and delivered a devastating kick that sent the boy crashing to the ground. Got you, you little brat. He approached triumphantly, while another gnashed his teeth and cursed, You little scoundrel. The guard didn't stop venting his anger with brutal blows. How dare you think of running away, you pathetic slave? Even in pain, the boy still tried to shield a younger child trembling beneath him. The child sobbed, But big brother, run. Witnessing the scene, Kaison urged coldly, Just a bunch of slaves. Let's keep moving. Logan stopped, his eyes glued to the scene. I know, but what is this? Logan stared in amazement at the slave boy, with blue hair and strange dual-colored eyes being tortured. A strangely familiar feeling washed over him, and he whispered to himself, Looks familiar. Suddenly, a name popped into his head, causing Logan to blurt out, Havector. Seeing Kaison look confused, Logan hurriedly ordered, Wait a second. Inside, he was screaming in astonishment. He couldn't believe he was crossing paths with a famous noble assassin in a place like this. From what Logan knew in his previous life, the boy before him was a cold-blooded killer in the making. He was a slave who murdered his own master to escape, then continuously took down countless soldiers and knights while on the run. Not long after, he became a wanted criminal after taking the life of a noble. About 10 years later, this guy would reappear and become a nightmare for many with power far exceeding that of a normal human. He began a massacre targeting every single member of his former master's family. Then he went on a wild killing spree against every noble in Grandia, earning the infamous title Noble Killer. Looking at him now, who would guess this frail kid is actually a future final boss? Logan calculated silently. If his memory served him right, the kid's escape happened about a year after he became a mercenary. Right now, the target was just a child, and if he could save him and recruit the boy, he'd have an incredibly powerful subordinate in the future. But the problem was, this kid was fundamentally a deranged murderer beyond anyone's control. A sharp, painful scream rang out, cutting through his thoughts. The jailer was bellowing in anger at someone. Handle this, brat. The young slave boy was biting down on the jailer's arm with everything he had, his eyes wild with hatred despite being brutally suppressed. Logan had been planning to recruit talent, but this scene looked a bit messy. Witnessing that tenacity, Logan told himself that if he could control the noble killer and turn him into his own weapon, it would be quite a brilliant idea. The jailer's face turned beet red from the pain, and he growled, Still fighting back, you little rat? Just as he raised his hand to lash out, Logan coldly stepped forward, blocking his path. The jailer turned and shouted, Which bastard dares to get in my way? But the moment he saw the majestic armor and Logan's piercing gaze, he froze, his aggression vanishing completely. He stared nervously at the emblem on Logan's armor, sweat dripping down his face, as he realized this wasn't someone he could afford to offend. His attitude did a complete 180-degree turn. He hurriedly bowed, bending his knees and flashing a fake sycophantic smile. Ha ha ha, so you're a distinguished guest. I apologize for what just happened. He rubbed his hands together obsequiously, explaining he was just disciplining some stubborn slaves, then eagerly asked what the gentleman needed. Logan looked down at the two pathetic children on the ground and gave a firm order. I want to buy these 2 slaves. Seeing a VIP, the slave trader with the bald head and sleazy mustache flipped his attitude faster than he had been shouting just a moment ago. He spoke up. You mean these 2, sir? He started his sales pitch, insisting that both children were extremely rare. Because of their unique red and blue heterochromatic eyes, the price wouldn't be cheap. When Logan coldly asked how much, the man didn't hesitate to shout an extortionate number. You must pay at least 10,000 gold for each. Logan squinted at him, feeling pure contempt inside. He knew this boundless greed was absurd. Even the healthiest, strongest slave was worth only 300 gold, yet this guy dared to ask for tens of times more for kids who were just skin and bones. Even though he knew the true future value of the noble killer was priceless, Logan wasn't about to let this old fox pick his pocket so easily. He decided to turn the tables, pointing out the harsh reality. Besides, it looks like one of them is about to die, doesn't it? Caught in his own trap, the guy's weak spot was exposed. There was no way the price wouldn't drop after that. Logan firmly stated his offer. 500 gold for each. That's more than enough for a healthy slave. The slave trader started to panic, trying to recover by saying that amount wouldn't cover his costs and care fees. But the moment Logan unleashed heavy pressure, along with a steely threat. "Do you think I don't know the price of slaves?" The man trembled and surrendered. Logan's hand tightened around his sword hilt, like a final warning, making the slave owner bow his head and humbly thank the customer for the purchase. After finalizing the deal, the group quickly left the slave market. While walking, the young slave boy suddenly opened his eyes, startling Kai-san. The one-eyed knight couldn't help but be amazed. With such severe wounds, he never expected the kid to recover so quickly. Logan just smiled, looking at the boy and thinking to himself that it was only natural, as he had been secretly channeling his inner energy into the boy the whole way. Watching the golden energy radiating from his own palm, Logan confidently affirmed that this method was even more effective than the holy magic of low-level priests. He was that strong. Kai-san looked like he wanted to quit his job right then and there. But deep down, Logan felt a jolt of extreme surprise as he noticed the little slave girl staring at him intensely. He wondered, how could a little girl feel his power when even a veteran mercenary like Kai-san hadn't noticed it? Logan shook his head, trying to reassure himself. Maybe his eyes were playing tricks on him. But immediately, Vector suddenly lunged up, using the last of his remaining strength to attack Logan. However, the clumsy strike of a child could not bypass him. Logan calmly dodged and easily locked the opponent's arm. Seeing the boy panting from exhaustion, his eyes still burning with hate, Logan asked coldly, "Are you brave or just stupid?" The younger sister standing nearby just screamed in terror. "Brother!" Even while being pinned, Vector still tried to shout in desperation, "Run! Hurry! Go!" Suddenly, Logan radiated an intimidating pressure, his eyes glowing as if trying to pierce through the other's soul. He growled with authority, "Kid, do you still not realize the current situation? Do I look like the slave trader from before?" The absolute dominance left Vector completely frozen, his breath coming in ragged gasps from fear. Logan continued his warning. "A fighting spirit is a good thing, but pick your targets wisely. I hope this is the last warning." Vector's voice softened just a bit, but remained stern. "If you follow my arrangements, I will ensure the safety of you and your sister." But then Logan added, a lethal psychological blow that made Vector tremble. "But if something like this happens again, I won't just deal with you, but your sister as well." Hearing the threat to the life of his only relative, Vector completely collapsed. He lowered his head, accepting his submission while coughing from his injuries. Seeing the child finally fearful, Logan thought to himself that this warning was surely enough. Unexpectedly, Logan made an incredible offer that stunned the boy. "I intend to train you to become a knight." Vector stammered in disbelief. "Me?" Logan smiled and explained that knights have status equivalent to nobles, and this was the only chance for the two siblings to truly escape their lives as slaves, moving from the bottom of society to the top of the server. Facing the bright future that Logan painted, Vector clenched his fists, his dual-colored eyes burning with determination, and roared, "I'll do it." Logan smiled, satisfied. He calculated to himself that the little sister was the perfect key to controlling this assassin's violent nature. He declared that he would begin training him as soon as they returned to the family estate. Turning to Hima, Logan noticed the dwarf looking a bit uneasy, so he suggested a private conversation and pulled out a pre-prepared magical contract. Logan spoke with absolute certainty about the terms written inside, promising that if he worked for him for 20 years, he would receive something in return: his freedom and the right to return to the mountains. Hearing about the chance to go back to his homeland, Hima trembled in disbelief, mumbling that empty promises were usually hard to trust. Seeing Logan smile and ask, "Why don't you want to?" Hima frantically confirmed he would definitely sign and serve him with everything he had, bursting into tears of gratitude for the kindness of a human. hurriedly correcting his address to Lord Logan, was satisfied. The contract had provided perfect motivation for Hema, just as he had expected. He was confident he had successfully met his goal. He had even gained more than that by recruiting a noble assassin to his side. However, while Logan was optimistic about his war preparations back home in Macklin, rumors about his bizarre behavior had spread, causing the reputation of the eldest young master to hit rock bottom. Rick Logan's loyal servant was going through the most miserable days of his life, trying to stop the rumors from spreading outside the Macklin territory. His face twisted with exhaustion and tears of helplessness. He screamed in despair, "Where on earth are you, you troublesome man?" "Young master, you've returned," Rick shouted excitedly as soon as he saw Logan appear. Logan smiled warmly and asked, "Rick, have you been well all this time?" But Rick's smile suddenly twisted, exuding an eerie, terrifying aura. He gritted his teeth. "Ha ha ha ha! Young master, now is the time for us to have a talk." Glad to see his master talking and smiling like that, Rick immediately exploded, shouting in helpless frustration, "What on earth have you been doing out there? Do you realize what the people are saying?" Rick revealed that Logan had been branded as a monster meat maniac after spending 150,000 gold coins on what was essentially trash. A few days later, the rumor spread like wildfire. In the town squares, the people were shocked. What did they say? Buying monster meat? Who would be crazy enough to do that? Their contempt grew even stronger when they realized it was Logan Macklin, a man already infamous for his engagement cancellation and the humiliation of taking money from his former fiancée. Standing in the crowd, the merchant. Philip broke into a cold sweat, thinking to himself that he thought the rumors about monster meat would boost sales, but he hadn't expected this man's reputation to be this bad. "I thought he was just a madman, but he's a total failure." Still casting aside all prejudices, Philip reassured himself that he absolutely could not miss this opportunity. His eyes lit up with determination. Philip shouted loudly, 1 kilogram for 1 gold coin." This unbelievable price left the crowd stunned for a moment before erupting. Philip thought to himself, smugly knowing that no merchant would be stupid enough to refuse to sell trash for such a high price. He continued to shout excitedly to stir everyone up. "Does everyone want some money? Then bring any meat from the Karen region here. It's best if it's vacuum-sealed smoked meat or dried meat." The crowd immediately cheered wildly. With Rick's active business capabilities, not only did merchants start collecting monster meat, but the rumors about Logan also spread to nearby properties. "This deal is too good." The people heard it and just auto-switched to scavenging mode. Ha ha ha. Logan laughed gleefully when he heard about the developments his partner had created. But Rick wasn't happy at all. He snapped, "Is now really the time to be laughing?" Rick pointed behind him, where Kai Solin, the old blacksmith Hema, and the Vector brothers were standing with miserable expressions. Seeing the faces of his companions, "My lord, go ahead, and imagine what the people around here have been complaining about during your visit." Even though Rick was losing his mind, Logan calmly reassured him, "Don't worry, everything will be resolved soon." This indifferent attitude only made Rick panic more. "Don't be so calm, my lord." He tremblingly revealed a more terrifying truth. "The head of the family is also very angry." Inside the room, the Lord of Macklin sat deep in thought, surrounded by a crimson aura of murderous intent, his eyes burning with a rage that seemed ready to incinerate everything. Seeing Logan walk in, he immediately mocked him. "So, did you enjoy your little escape?" Logan maintained his dignified demeanor and firmly replied, "It wasn't an escape, just a small trip." Lord Macklin then spoke in an oppressive tone. "Judging by the rumors, it seems you really enjoyed that unauthorized fun little trip. At least you enjoyed it, I suppose. Lucky you." Logan did not waver. He looked straight at his father and asserted, "Rumors are just rumors. I am not ashamed of any of my actions." The atmosphere grew intense. His defiant answer made Lady Macklin laugh with contempt. "Ha, look at that. My lord the young master doesn't even realize his own position." She constantly poured oil on the fire, harshly criticizing his actions and saying they could damage the family's honor. Letting her finish, Logan coldly interrupted, "Mother, you're exaggerating. I simply used the money from the cancelled engagement as I saw fit." This shocking revelation left her stunned, gasping, "What?" She immediately turned to her husband, urging him, "My dear, did you hear that? After this, do you still want to keep him by your side?" Lord Macklin roared with authority. "Silence!" She still stubbornly added, "Basically, the young master is in the wrong." The thundering shout of Lord Macklin made the whole room tremble. He stood up abruptly, exerting overwhelming power, and ordered, "I want to speak with Logan alone. You get out." Although still full of resentment and unwillingness, she could only clutch her chest and leave in indignation. "How could you?" When only the father and son were left, Lord Macklin looked at Logan with sharp eyes and concluded, "I am the only one. Dealing with Logan, this will be your final warning." "What are you doing?" "Logan, have you lost your mind?" Lord Macklin's voice thundered with rage in the empty room. "Why would you do something like this? Tell me the truth." Logan was silent for a moment. He told himself he couldn't just keep ignoring this. But then he sighed softly and replied, "Even if I told you, father, you wouldn't understand." That answer only made Lord Macklin more disappointed, and he asked back, "Do you not want to be understood?" He reminded Logan of all the bitter gossip out there, that the world was calling him violent, cruel, money-hungry, and most recently, a madman. Lord Macklin clenched his fists bitterly, asking how much longer he was expected to cover for his own son. He then insisted that if Logan wanted him to stop, all he had to do was say so. Finally, he uttered a painful remark, "Just go on living like this. At least you'll be able to tell your late mother that you did well." Her name made Logan freeze, his heart tightening. He realized that in his previous life, even when he was kicked out, his father had never once mentioned her to him. This made Logan realize that, as it turned out, he hadn't completely given up on his son yet. He looked his father straight in the eyes and pleaded, "Please give me 1 year. In 1 year I will prove the reason for my actions." Logan placed his hand over his left chest and bowed solemnly. Like a knight's oath, he said, "Please give me this chance, father." After his decisive request, Logan quietly turned and left the room, leaving Lord Macklin sitting in contemplation alone. At his desk in the setting sun, watching his son's silhouette, he softly repeated those 2 words, "Father," with bitterness, thinking how strange it was that they could even speak to each other like this. Lord Macklin sat silently in the room, his trembling hands caressing a necklace with the image of his late wife. He whispered to himself that if Logan couldn't prove himself in a year, he would be forced to make a cruel decision, because beyond being a father, he was the head of the house, carrying the future of the entire clan on his shoulders. Looking at her portrait, he sighed sorrowfully. "Rena, forgive me. I don't understand what our son is thinking. I promised to protect and raise him to be a good man." He blamed himself, feeling he had been too indifferent to Logan all this time. Meanwhile, in another corner of the territory, Logan was stunned to see his younger brother waiting for him. He exclaimed in surprise, "Ronin, have you awakened your inner strength?" Little Ronin wore a radiant smile, his hands glowing with a powerful golden energy. "Yes, I knew you would notice, brother." Logan was stunned because in his previous life, Ronin only awakened his inner strength much later, right when the territorial war broke out. And yet, the kid had done it at only 14 years old. Ronin excitedly insisted that all this achievement was thanks to his brother. Seeing Logan still confused, the boy explained that, because the knights kept guarding the place and wouldn't let him see Logan, he became determined to unleash his power to get past them. Looking at the 2 knights, clutching their heads and grimacing after being knocked out by a child, Logan was dumbfounded, wondering, "He awakened just to see me." What surprised him even more was his brother's terrifying talent, being able to defeat 2 seasoned knights the moment he just awakened his inner strength. Logan laughed heartily, patting him on the shoulder to encourage him. Ha 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 ha. Well done, Roni. In his heart, he began to sketch out a top-tier training plan. As soon as his brother's energy stabilized, he would teach him the Holy Illusion Sword technique. Ronnie would definitely be even stronger than he was in the previous life. Shortly after that, Logan, along with Kai and Solon, traveled to the vacation mansion in the south of the Macklin territory to carry out the next step of the plan. Upon arrival, he immediately called out, "Wei, come here." Recognizing the young Master Wei hurried to stop his work and came over to greet him. "Ah, the young master is here. As you requested, I have recruited 350 C-rank mercenaries. Everyone is here," Wei reported. As soon as Logan appeared at the villa, the mercenaries were gathering out front, but the atmosphere was filled with dissatisfied whispers. "Is that the guy? Leaving a bunch of people in a dilapidated villa for 10 days, is he trying to scam us?" They began to doubt Logan's reputation, assuming he was a madman for daring to challenge the entire mercenary guild. Even when they saw Logan carrying a shield and sword, they mocked him, planning to play soldier or what. Logan heard it all. He thought to himself, these guys who make a living by their fists and swords really can't survive without being gossipy. Logan walked straight up to a big bald mercenary and called out, "Hey you!" The mercenary looked confused. Are you talking to me?" Logan stared right into the other's eyes and asked, "Do you find it funny that I'm carrying a shield and a sword?" The bald man turned pale, not understanding how Logan could have heard his words from that distance. Logan smirked, "Think what you want. If you've got the talent, I'm curious. What skills does a C-rank mercenary have to be talking to others like that?" Seeing the mercenary get annoyed, Logan continued to provoke him. "Seems you've got a bit of pride, huh? Contrary to what I thought." Then he made a shocking offer. "All right, come at me. If you can hit me even once, I'll pay you a year's wages and let you go back." The crowd erupted at the massive reward. Logan declared this was a promise of honor by his noble dignity, with everyone here as witnesses. The bald man immediately jumped up, excited. "Great! No need to say more. This is a huge bounty." Everyone who heard it turned into a gambler. He walked toward Logan with his hulking frame, making the mercenaries around them admire him. Some even suspected he was a B-rank mercenary. Standing opposite the extremely calm young master, the bald man wore a smug smile and announced loudly, "I'll let you strike first." Logan smirked, replying confidently, "Me first, trust me, you don't want that. You're going to regret that." The bald guy still didn't know his place, spitting out a mocking challenge. "Don't worry, the sword you're about to taste will be better than anything you've ever had. Are you looking for a broken limb?" Before he could finish, Logan threw a lightning-fast punch straight into his face. The force of the punch left everyone watching, from the mercenaries to Kai, Solon, and Dwight, completely dumbfounded. The guy was sent flying into the air before crashing down to the ground. He lay motionless, unable to fight back after just one hit from the young master. One strike, and he was down. The whole area suddenly went dead silent. The mercenaries who were just mocking him moments ago now stood frozen in their tracks, sweat dripping from their foreheads out of pure fear. Logan calmly brushed off his armor, the internal energy on his hands slowly fading. He narrowed, his eyes maintaining a cold and imposing expression in the face of the crowd's terror. At such a young age, he already possesses internal energy. Whispers of shock began to spread through the mercenary crowd, who had just witnessed their burly comrade taken out with a single punch. They were in complete disbelief. "This is insane! How is that even possible?" Even Kai Solon, a seasoned A-rank mercenary, couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. I knew he was good, but not to this extent. Standing in the center, Logan smirked, looking quite smug, thinking to himself, "Looks like no one has any more complaints." As silence filled the air, Logan spoke up clearly. "All right, let me formally introduce myself. I am Logan Macklin, the one who recruited you all here. Many of you are wondering why I'm hiring mercenaries with my own money." Logan wore a radiant smile. "I want to train you all to become crossbow cavalry." This decision left both Dwight and Kai Solon frozen solid, their faces showing extreme confusion. The whole group stood there like broken machines for a few seconds. Then the mercenaries began to react harshly. Crossbows. Who uses those while riding a horse? They didn't stop complaining that reloading a crossbow was incredibly time-consuming, making it a useless weapon in fast-paced battles. Kai Solon quickly approached and whispered into Logan's ear with concern, "Lord Logan, that's not an effective weapon for cavalry." Logan remained strangely calm and replied, "I know." The short answer left Kai Solon even more confused. "Wait, you know. Then why?" Kai Solon began analyzing the fatal flaws. Even though crossbows have higher lethality than bows, for those who aren't used to them, it takes over a minute to reload. To draw the string, one is forced to attach a foot stirrup. To use leg power, a move almost impossible to perform effectively while on horseback. Even if you carried a few crossbows, your firepower would run dry within a minute, turning the soldier into a living target, easily ambushed. After hearing that, everyone decided this sounded like a death sentence. Seeing the trainer's skeptical face, Logan coldly said, "Even you think I'm spending money just to play war?" He affirmed that he was completely confident in this plan, and he ordered, "First train them properly. You'll understand the reason later." Logan was certain that this crossbow cavalry unit would become the core force of the Macklin house, not just for minor disputes, but for the future of the clan. Seeing the young master's determined gaze, Kai Solon had no choice but to close his eyes, bow his head, and reply, "As you command." A few days later, Logan sat deep in thought in his office, flipping through the list of new recruits. Out of the 350 mercenaries hired, 312 had passed the basic quality test. A number he was temporarily satisfied with, thinking to himself, "Not bad." Just then, the old blacksmith Hema walked in and respectfully called out, "Master." Seeing him holding a draft, Logan asked, "What's this? The pass rate is high. It looks like we recruited a team of experts." Logan looked straight at the blacksmith and asked, "Have you seen it all yet?" He explained that this was the design drawing for the crossbow he wanted the old man to craft. Logan silently mused that, to an expert like Hema, this drawing might look a bit strange, but since he had used this weapon for decades in his past life, he remembered it very clearly and had redrawn the entire basic structure. He was confident a top-tier dwarven craftsman like Hema could pull it off. Hema stared intently at the drawing. He couldn't help but gasp in shock. A crossbow with a magazine in the back, automatic reloading, and it has to fire 3 arrows in a row. He muttered in amazement. Who could come up with this crazy idea? Logan calmly replied, "I did." The drawing looked like a hasty sketch, but the concept was straight out of another world. Seeing Logan's attitude, Hema paused for a moment, then nodded, admitting to himself that this was truly a genius idea. However, with the experience of a master blacksmith, he immediately pointed out the illogical parts. But with this mechanism, the string will snap because it can't withstand the pressure, and attaching a wooden box like this to the back will be very inconvenient for the shooter. How do you intend to solve that? To the old blacksmith's tricky question, Logan just shrugged, flashed a carefree smile, and replied, "How would I know? That's your job." Logan's dump-and-run answer made Hema furious. A killing intent flared up around him as if he were about to explode. Seeing the situation getting tense, Logan quickly waved his hands, trying to cover for his blunder. I was just joking. Don't get angry, just listen." He began analyzing in more detail to soothe the blacksmith, suggesting smaller arrows to reduce the size of the magazine since they were single-use. Logan explained further that one only needed to make a rotating shaft for the magazine so it could self-reload after each shot. Just think of it as a convenient storage. These explanations made Hema start to ponder the feasibility of this deadly weapon. He went from being about to explode to tech mode angry, but still having to do the work. Impossible! The blacksmith Hema exclaimed in surprise when looking at the drawing. He asserted that even a veteran marksman would struggle to fire 2 arrows with a crossbow in a minute, while this design seemed to go beyond all knowledge of the current era. Logan just calmly smiled, thinking, "This is a weapon developed from the future." He explained that the materials to create it were extremely simple, only including a case bowstrings glue and a few small accessories. Before the miracle of the design, the dwarf's competitive spirit was ignited. Hema gripped the paper tightly and declared, "I am looking forward to taking on this challenge. All right, I will try to build it." The insane idea had triggered the professional pride of the blacksmith. When Logan asked about the completion time, Hema looked annoyed. "You demand a weapon, and you even want a deadline." Logan calmly replied that this was still just something made by humans after all. This statement made Hema jump up out of bruised pride. "What? That's absurd. Who has ever made it?" Seeing the old blacksmith had taken the bait, Logan continued to provoke him. "You don't need to know. If you find it impossible, just give up." Having his pride as a master craftsman touched, Hema immediately accepted the challenge. He held up one finger and declared clearly, "1 month, I will create something even better than that." In that time, Logan watched the blacksmith's retreating back with a smug smile, thinking to himself, "Just wait and see how shocking it is to challenge a dwarf's pride." Not long after that, he started training the talents he had just recruited. Under the scorching sun, the sound of heavy, rapid panting echoed. Vector was running endless laps around the yard for dear life, sweat soaking through his shirt. Watching from above, Logan shouted to push him. "You're slowing down, keep moving." Vector braced himself and lunged forward, his face showing clear exhaustion, yet his eyes shone with determination. Logan silently assessed the change in the boy since he was brought here, and having eaten and rested properly, the future noble assassin's condition had improved miraculously. Looking at Vector's legs trembling from exhaustion, but still refusing to stop, Logan was extremely satisfied with the boy's willpower. Legs want to quit, but the head says no. Stubborn level max. Logan coldly barked, "Break immediately." Vector collapsed to the ground, breathing in ragged gasps. After the hellish physical torture, his little sister ran over anxiously to check on him. Watching from afar, Logan silently evaluated the boy's potential. A 14-year-old shorter than his peers, yet able to run continuously. For 20 kilometers, he is truly talented. He was not only impressed by the physical strength, but also by Vector's persistent tenacity until the very last second. However, seeing the 2 siblings leaning on each other, Logan pondered a different issue. He realized that the brutal soul known as the noble assassin in his previous life did not seem to be the boy's true nature. Logan wondered then, the reason he ended up like that in the past must have been because he didn't. Not letting himself sink too deep into thought, he decisively ordered, "Enough, get up onto the next training session." Even though his body was still aching, Vector immediately jumped up, ready to carry out Logan's command. He handed the boy a wooden sword and declared, "From now on, you will learn the Grandia Royal swordsmanship. This is what every knight in this kingdom practices." He started by getting into a stance reminding him, "Watch and learn from me." Demonstrating, Logan swung the sword with a powerful strike. Facing the new drill, Vector felt his body had reached its limit. "So tired I could just collapse and sleep." Drowsiness engulfed him, making his eyes glaze over, but Vector reminded himself of the reward, delicious food, and a warm, cozy bed waiting for him. To stay awake, he gritted his teeth and bit his lip until it bled. With eyes shining with determination, Vector gripped the wooden sword and poured all his remaining strength into his first swing. Exhausted yet still pushing, Logan stood stunned with amazement while witnessing what was unfolding before his eyes. He thought to himself, it's exactly the same, not just the movement, but the breathing regulation too. Logan couldn't believe that this boy could perfectly simulate everything even after seeing it only once something even Ronin at his age couldn't do. Logan smirked. Smiling with satisfaction, he encouraged him. Once you build up the strength and can perfectly perform the imperial swordsmanship over 1,000 times, perhaps then you can call yourself a knight. Saw it once and already copy-pasted. This talent is basically a cheat code. Knight Vector muttered, his heterochromatic eyes glowing with a glimmer of hope, even though his lip was still bleeding. Logan smiled and asked, "Can you do it?" The boy didn't hesitate and replied clearly, "I can, sir." Logan nodded in approval. "Very well. If you need anything during training, just tell Rick. We will provide you with almost anything you need." However, Vector bowed his head in refusal. "I don't need anything." Seeing Logan still puzzled, he asked again. The boy hesitated, then looked toward his sister standing behind him and pleaded, "I just hope everyone will continue to take care of my sister like you are now. That is all I need." The sacrifice and the devotion of the boy deeply impressed Logan. He silently estimated that even though Vector couldn't go into battle right now, sooner or later he would bring great power to Macklin. Logan shouted to start the next exercise. Now for the next stance. Besides that, he also placed his hopes on the group of mercenaries, and the weapon Hama was forging, which would be a massive asset. However, Logan understood that relying solely on a positive outcome was dangerous. Hama could fail in the manufacturing process, or the mercenaries might not use them properly. After entrusting everything to others, Logan told himself it was time to prepare a backup plan. He went to find his father at the Lord's office. Lord Macklin asked in surprise, "Wait, are you saying you want to participate in the night training?" Facing his father's astonishment, Logan remained remarkably determined. He held his head high, his eyes burning with resolve as he prepared to give his final answer. "Listen up, everyone." The booming voice of Heiko Macklin, commander of the Macklin Night Corps, echoed across the training grounds, drawing the attention of all the soldiers. He solemnly announced, "From today on, young Master Logan will participate in our night training sessions." This announcement was like a bolt of lightning from a clear sky, leaving the crowd of soldiers buzzing with suspicion. They couldn't stop whispering, "Huh, what did he just say? Did I hear that right?" Some even sarcastic, claiming that defeating Dominon had made Logan delusional enough to think becoming a knight was a joke. Before this, Heiko had expressed his concerns to Lord Macklin, that letting the young master train with the soldiers might cause resentment within the ranks. Yet the Lord remained firm, growling his order. "Heiko, I don't ask for special treatment for him. Just treat him like a recruit and train him thoroughly." This order put immense pressure on Heiko. He thought to himself that treating the master's son gently would have been much easier than having to be strict with him. Noticing the commander's hesitation, Logan smiled slightly to reassure him. "Don't worry." To strengthen their trust, Logan firmly offered a weighty commitment. "If I hold anyone back even once during this week of training, I will withdraw on my own." Seeing the resolve of the young master, Heiko nodded. Very well. That was it. But immediately after, a sinister smile appeared on the seasoned commander's face. His eyes burned with a terrifying, killing intent as he silently declared, "Next week, the night training intensity will be tripled." Hearing the deal, everyone knew they were about to have a miserable time. Immediately, a hellish training regime officially began putting the soldiers in a desperate situation. They had to brace themselves to carry their comrades on their backs, dragging their heavy feet in utter agony. One soldier cried out in despair, "What kind of hellish training is this?" Responding to the grievances, Heiko roared in rage, "Shut up, you are cavalrymen. Shouldn't you understand how a horse feels?" He argued that this was exactly what the horses felt when they had to carry heavily armored knights across the battlefield, leaving the soldiers with nothing to say but, speechless in the face of this absurd yet ruthless logic. It made no sense, but it was impossible to argue with. The soldiers muttered in frustration as they jogged, complaining about having to wear full heavy armor during training. They were convinced it was all Logan's fault, certain that the young master wouldn't last more than 3 days and might even give up immediately. But everyone was left slack-jawed in amazement when they saw Logan zoom past like a gust of wind, leaving the entire squad in the dust, even while carrying someone on his back. Even Commander Heiko couldn't believe his eyes, stuttering, "No way, is that brat actually in the lead?" Logan still had a bright smile on his face while performing the grueling exercises. Heiko started to worry that the regular soldiers would collapse before the young master did. Seeing his men dropping one by one from exhaustion, he had to order a 10-minute break. Panting and groaning filled the training grounds. No one could believe Logan's monstrous stamina. The whole team was wiped out. Heiko approached Logan with a knowing smirk, trying to probe him. "How are you holding up, young master? It's pretty rough, right?" He even hinted that if Logan admitted it was too hard, this insane training could be stopped right now. But Logan just calmly replied, "I can handle it." The answer left Heiko stunned, and before he could even recover, Logan added, "What an incredible training method. Soldiers who go through this every day must be truly strong. I'm really looking forward to the next session." The commander heard that, and probably felt like short-circuiting to avoid the shock. Seeing Logan so excited, Heiko could only stand there speechless and frustrated, as everything was going completely against his original calculations. That night, standing alone under the moonlight, after the other knights had left, Logan pondered his future. He understood that training with the knights was the safest contingency plan. If his other schemes failed, he would join the Knight Order and fight on the front lines, so it was best to build camaraderie with the others starting now. Logan realized that his strength didn't just come from meditation. Most importantly, he needed physical conditioning. The grueling night training turned out to be a huge help for developing his internal energy. He smiled contentedly as he felt the golden energy swirling in his palm, whispering to himself, "It really works. Thanks to the developing internal core, I rarely feel tired, even though my core is currently only at the 1-star level, but the power it emits is already staggering." He was confident that if he reached 2 stars, he would have strength comparable to a veteran knight like his father. However, when he returned to check on the progress of the weapon manufacturing, Logan's mood immediately soured. He threw the crossbow prototypes to the ground and snapped, "Failure. This one's a dud too." Logan couldn't hide his disappointment looking at the crude products before him. "This is the best you could do." He turned to interrogate Hema, the old blacksmith, about the repeating crossbow with an integrated magazine he had requested, but what the old man produced could only fire a single bolt. Hema trembled with rage, ready to argue, but Logan suddenly changed his attitude, pretending to pat his head apologetically. "Oh, my bad, I'm sorry. I spoke too harshly." Seeing the dwarf still fuming, feeling his craftsman's pride had been trampled, Logan delivered a crushing psychological blow. "If this is the best you can do, then I can't force you. I didn't think this was all you could make after so many weeks. I expected too much. My fault." Logan sealed the deal with a bucket of cold water. "I overestimated you. I misjudged you. I didn't expect to spend this much money for this." The stinging provocation made the blacksmith Hema turn purple, with rage veins bulging on his forehead. He roared in fury, "I'll do it again. I'll be back in a month." Immediately, Hema vented his anger by smashing the faulty weapon right in front of Logan. Witnessing that, Logan inwardly marveled at the dwarf's intense pride when he saw the old man decide to redo everything from scratch. Watching Hema's back, Logan wore a sinister smile, thinking, "The more I push him into a corner, the more certain it is that a masterpiece will come to life. After all, this is a true dwarven blacksmith." Exactly 1 month later, in the snowy mountains, a new weapon was brought out for testing. The sound of a bowstring snapping taut. 2 bolts flew out with wind-tearing speed. Bingo! Finally, the high-quality gear I expected. Both bolts thwacked perfectly into the center of the target, to Logan's amazement. Hema smugly explained that even though the bolt capacity was lower than initially requested, it was incredibly lightweight, could be held with one hand, and the magazine was easy to reload. Logan was stunned to realize that the entire process of reloading and firing took less than 5 seconds. He silently analyzed, "Although the range and damage might be inferior to weapons from my past life, this is the perfect thing for a cavalry unit." Logan was extremely satisfied. This finished product had far exceeded his expectations, giving him complete confidence for the upcoming territorial battle. Even though there was still plenty of preparation time, fast, neat, and precise one look, and you know it's top-tier combat gear. Seeing Logan lost in thought, Hema impatiently asked, "Master, are you even listening to me?" Suddenly, Logan rushed over, wrapped his arms around the blacksmith's shoulders, and laughed loudly with excitement. "Well done! You're a genius, Hema. You're the best." This childish display made the dwarf extremely awkward. He tried to push him away, shouting that he wasn't a child to be treated like that. Logan looked at him with respectful and warm eyes, silently thanking the old blacksmith for his efforts. Touched by the sincere recognition from the young master, Hema's eyes welled up with emotion. But the very next second, Logan showed his true colors as an exploiter, flashing a cunning grin. He looked the blacksmith straight in the eye and made an impossible request that left the other man stunned. "Could you make 400 of these in 2 months?" The bolts flew with wind-tearing speed, embedding themselves deep into the old tree trunk, creating strong impacts. The mercenaries standing nearby couldn't help but gasp in excitement at the range and impressive power of the new weapon. Even Kai Solon was stunned. He silently marveled, as he witnessed a repeating crossbow that actually existed, possessing everything from long range and power to an unbelievably fast reload speed. His eyes trembled violently as he imagined more than 300 cavalrymen equipped with this crossbow, a vision that gave him goosebumps because of its terrifying destructive power on the battlefield. He turned to admit to Logan that this was indeed an incredible weapon, and he finally understood why the young master was so determined to establish such a small cavalry unit. Logan smiled triumphantly, silently, thanking the effort that had turned Hema's hair gray. Even though they had hired extra assistants to speed up the process, completing it 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and producing an extra 100 crossbows was truly a miracle that only a dwarven master could achieve. 2 weeks to produce an additional 100 crossbows, it's truly a miracle that only a dwarven master could pull off. Spamming the whole squad with this gear, that's a game changer. It's definitely easier to breathe now. Logan pondered deeply. As much as he wanted to equip his entire army, budget constraints and the fear of his designs leaking forced him to keep things limited for now. He firmly ordered Kaison that starting tomorrow all mercenaries would be issued weapons to begin clearing out the monsters around the dungeon area. Seeing Kaison hesitating, thinking the mission might be beyond their capabilities, Logan smirked and challenged him. "Sounds impossible, right? Look at those arrows." Still embedded deep in the smoldering wood, Kaison nodded slightly silently, admitting that with their current power, things might actually work. Looking at the smoking wood and saying it can't be done would be a lack of faith. Logan coldly stated that this wasn't about whether it was possible, it was mandatory. Otherwise, all their hard work would be meaningless. He looked Kaison straight in the eye, emphasizing that this weapon wasn't just created for monster hunting. Standing before the waiting troops, Logan roared his command, telling everyone to grab a crossbow and prepare for the journey ahead. Seeing the young master's determination, Kaison couldn't help but shiver, realizing they weren't just hunting, they were preparing for actual war. Wow, his stamina is truly extraordinary. Murmurs of amazement echoed across the training ground as the soldiers witnessed Logan pushing himself to carry 2 soldiers at once, on his back while still sprinting at full speed. The crowd couldn't help but wonder if this incredible physical strength was a genetic trait inherited from Lord Mark, or not. They whispered that if Logan truly inherited his father's talent, his swordsmanship would undoubtedly be formidable. carrying 2 people, and running like the wind. He's practically a Naruto character. However, there were still skeptical voices recalling the Dominic incident, claiming an old man's skills weren't worth comparing, especially since Logan was once considered a loser, even against his younger brother Ronin, before the boy had awakened his inner power. But after more than a month of insanely grueling training, those prejudices began to crumble. The regimen designed to push Logan away had instead made him a new icon, a spiritual pillar for the entire Night Squad. The atmosphere on the training field changed completely. Even the lazy low-level knights were now caught up in the rhythm of training, energetically. Even with bodies aching and exhausted, they had to admit that this training was far more effective than regular running. In fact, directly experiencing the heavy load on their backs helped the knights gradually understand and empathize deeply with their own horses. A knight gently stroked his steed, whispering, "Buddy, you must have suffered a lot carrying me everywhere. Thank you." The camaraderie among the soldiers also became tighter than ever. When one soldier apologetically felt bad for being too heavy, his comrade immediately reassured him, "It's fine, man. We're a team, don't talk down about yourself like that." Witnessing this display of unity, Commander Kason couldn't help but smile contentedly. He realized that it was young Master Logan's persistence that had produced an unexpected result, forging the Night Legion into a unified powerhouse. Going from a loose team to a tight-knit squad, their morale leveled up big time. Logan swallowed a huge gulp of water, and despite complaining that his whole body ached, his eyes flashed with satisfaction as he muttered to himself, "Talk about hitting the jackpot." As night fell and the full moon shone brightly, Logan didn't rest, but began his meditation. He understood that after his body was completely exhausted, or from training, meditating would stimulate his inner consciousness most effectively. This constant combination was creating a significant resonance effect, helping Logan clearly feel his inner power beginning to show promising signs of change. Training all day and meditating all night. Logan closed his eyes, whispering to himself that if everything went as expected and his power increased, he could even surpass terrifying beings like the Aura Masters or great mages he had seen in his past life. A fiery stream of energy began to take shape and swirl right before his chest. Logan focused with high intensity to compress the fiercely burning inner power, letting the ancient magical runes spin around the sphere of energy as it became increasingly dense and blinding right at his heart. He gritted his teeth, pouring all his strength into his fist, causing the energy to burst forth violently before suddenly stabilizing. Logan let out a soft sigh of relief. Done. His face showed clear satisfaction as he felt the powerful breakthrough surging through his body. Tier 2. This advancement was the foundation for Logan to begin learning the next part of the secret technique. He recalled the power of the iron slicing strike and was sure the second move would far exceed his expectations. Logan looked out the window, determined, vowing that if he could master this technique before the war, high-level knights wouldn't be a problem anymore. Across the green field, the sound of galloping hooves broke, the silence startling the monsters. The monsters looked back in confusion, only to see clouds of dust and the thunderous sound of horses rushing toward them like a storm. Before they could understand what was happening, they were completely surrounded. Kaison narrowed his eyes coldly, firmly raising his fist to signal the cavalry to line up and charge, straight at the chaotic fleeing monsters. The command to prepare echoed, followed by a powerful order to fire. The repeating crossbows fired in unison, hitting the monsters directly, leaving them no time to react, only able to scream in despair. Kaison calmly observed the scene, while the mercenaries accompanying them were amazed at the terrifying destructive power of this weapon. One soldier shouted excitedly that the crossbow had zero recoil. In fact, his arrow even pierced through his target to hit the head of the monster behind it. Logan calculated that over 100 monsters had been wiped out in just 10 short seconds. He told himself that the effort spent changing their crossbow usage habits and improving the reload speed had truly yielded incredibly rewarding results. Kaison approached and asked if Logan was satisfied yet. He just calmly replied that while the first battle was still a bit messy, the results were decent enough. Kaison couldn't hide his curiosity, asking why Logan had traveled all the way out here to build an army with such unprecedented firepower. Was his goal to wipe out all monsters on the continent? Just as Logan was about to answer, a desperate scream from a soldier in the distance cut the conversation short. Logan and Kaison stood stunned, looking at the soldier rushing toward them. He reported that he had been sent by Rick urgently to find young Master Logan. Before he could even understand what was happening, the soldier delivered shocking news. Yesterday, Marquis Teslin declared war. Logan's face hardened, his eyes burning with killing intent. As for what is happening, the soldier delivered shocking news yesterday. Marquis Teslin declared war. Logan's face hardened, his eyes burning with killing intent. The territory war has officially begun. Marquis Teslin appeared within the magic orb, his face twisted in rage as he roared with hatred, vowing to put an end to the long-standing blood feud between their ancestors by completely annihilating the Macklin family. Lord Macklin watched this arrogant declaration of war with a cold, steady gaze while his close subordinates began to whisper in anxious doubt, questioning whether settling this old score was merely a pretext for Teslin to justify his act of invasion. Faced with this direct threat, Lady Macklin looked at her husband with deep concern and softly asked, "What should we do, my lord?" The military situation appeared incredibly bleak when a knight reported that the number of knights in Marquis Teslin's army alone was already 50% larger than the entire Macklin family force. Even with the Lord personally joining the battlefield, the odds of victory remained a massive question mark, making the atmosphere in the war room suffocating. The advisors began to argue fiercely. Some proposed a defensive strategy to compensate for their lack of manpower. Others feared the castle walls would become a slaughterhouse if the enemy's elite knights attacked, with some even trembling as they suggested sending an envoy to negotiate a peace deal to avoid a bloodbath. Witnessing the chaos and cowardice of his subordinates, Lord Macklin suddenly slammed his hand down on the table and roared with authority, "Silence, you haven't even fought yet, and you are already worrying about losing." He indignantly pointed out that while the royal power was currently waning, the fact that the Teslin clan dared to declare war on their own without the king's permission was an act of blatant defiance. Lord Macklin asserted that the enemy only wanted to stir up chaos and sow discord in his territory. With eyes burning with killing intent, he gritted his teeth and questioned those who demanded peace, asking them about the true meaning behind such a cowardly suggestion. No one dared to protest. He stood up abruptly and ordered the entire army to prepare for a life-or-death battle. The Lord firmly declared that the only goal now was to discuss tactics, to secure victory, and he would not accept any talk of backing down. Whatever he said was final. Anyone who spoke of retreat would be kicked out of the legion. The resolve of the family head caused the entire room to fall silent. Those who disagreed could only lower their heads in fear. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Lady Macklin could not hide her anxiety for her children. She hesitated and asked if the young masters would have to join this brutal battle. Lord Macklin turned away, his gaze hardening with grim determination. He affirmed firmly that his sons would definitely have to fight. Lord Macklin mused about the future of the family as Ronan had officially awakened his internal energy, and Logan had reached the age to shoulder the responsibilities of the eldest son. Rick, standing by, silently assessed that both brothers possessed extraordinary power and would certainly become the core strength for the Macklin family, especially since Logan had recently been training hard with the Knights. But as soon as he realized the severity of the declaration of war, Rick turned pale with terror. "This is bad. The young master is not here." He rushed down the villa hallway, shouting internally that he had to inform him immediately. At the southern encampment, after hearing the emergency report, Logan stood stunned, calculating in his mind. According To his memories of his past life, the war was supposed to break out 2 months later. What had changed the timeline? His face grew tense and anxious at this sudden shift. The messenger urged him in a panic, "Young master, you must hurry." They ignored protocol and moved out immediately after declaring war. If we leave now, we might still make it in time. To join the fight! Logan clenched his fists, his eyes burning with resolve as he told himself there was no time to hesitate any longer. Right then, Kai Solon approached with a smile, full of arrogance, bragging that Logan's mercenary squad was always ready to deploy. Seeing the trainer's overly calm attitude, Logan asked, surprised, "Kai, aren't you surprised to hear that war has broken out?" Kai Solon laughed brightly and replied bluntly, "We've been hoping for a battle. If there isn't one, we'll just create one ourselves." Not even fought yet, and they're already thirsty for combat. This team is truly bloodthirsty to the max. Kai Solon looked at the weapon in his hand and excitedly declared, "Who doesn't want to test out these newly equipped high-quality weapons?" Logan looked around, feeling the fiery atmosphere blanketing the entire army. These people were all brimming with confidence. He smirked with satisfaction, knowing that their confidence was well-founded, because last winter, this very group of mercenaries created a miracle by overwhelmingly crushing a herd of giant monsters. Logan tightened his combat gloves. So what if the war started unexpectedly? As long as they win, it's fine. Logan smirked, confidently telling himself that they had enough strength now. While the entire Macklin family was falling into chaos and fear over the sudden war, Logan's mercenary squad, with only 314 people, was ready to deploy amidst thunderous cheers. They were full of confidence that they would win, but the reality of the war actually unfolded much faster than the Macklin family could have anticipated. Just 1 day after declaring war, Teslin's army officially appeared at the Macklin territory, with numbers far exceeding every prediction. A knight rushed into the war room, frantically reporting the emergency. "There are over 100 knights, my lord, and it seems there are over 1,000 cavalry and nearly 10,000 conscripted soldiers joining as reinforcements. This is an all-out assault." Lord Macklin was horrified and roared, "What?" In this era, the power of knights far surpassed common people and was always the main force on the battlefield. Lord Macklin could not believe this was just an internal territorial war. Yet, the enemy was heartlessly forcing even civilians to enlist. He gritted his teeth in indignation. Why go this far? Not stopping there, the knight continued to deliver desperate news. The Cairo family had just sent word that they would not provide military support. Lady Macklin turned pale, trembling as she stammered, What did you just say? Already short on people, and now being backstabbed and blindsided before they could even breathe." She could not believe this harsh reality, frantically hoping there must have been some misunderstanding. Even though the knight insisted that Lord Quan had confirmed it multiple times, the lady was still shocked, intending to go and confirm the matter herself. Witnessing the collapse all around him, Lord Macklin gritted his teeth with grim resolve. He exuded his authority one last time and loudly ordered the knight to gather all the men who could fight. "We will respond with all of our power. It has reached this point. If we don't fight, it's game over. Even the Cairo family has turned their backs." Driven into a corner, Macklin gathered all available resources to fight Teslin, and so they managed to muster 53 knights and 552 regular soldiers, plus 4,418 conscripts. The total military force was 5,023 people. The army stretched out on the field, but on the faces of the new recruits, one could only see the anxiety and fear that engulfed them. Lord Macklin silently led the army, his back heavy with thoughts about the overwhelming imbalance in power. This number was less than half of Teslin's army, making Lord Macklin unable to stop gritting his teeth in tension. Within the ranks of the knights, they began to whisper, "Where is the young master?" Another replied, "Don't you know, earlier he He still hasn't returned yet, has he? Someone whispered maliciously. Right at a time like this, he's definitely not coming back. He probably caught wind of the news and ran for his life. Hearing those insults aimed at his brother, Ronan snapped in anger. Nonsense, the young boy growled firmly. My brother would never do such a thing. Ronan recalled the image of Logan smiling and making a promise. He had promised to teach him secret techniques so they could protect their family together because he had already foreseen this war. Ronan's eyes burned with faith as he declared to everyone, he didn't run away. He's not a coward. The eldest son ran away. Is that rumor true? The Lord's son really just ditched us. The soldiers' whispers made the atmosphere before the battle even more tense. Facing Logan's absence, Lord Macklin turned to his second son with heavy eyes. Ronan, you will have to take your brother's place and fulfill his duty. Even though his heart still ached with the question of why, he had let himself believe in Logan's promise. But he knew now was not the time to think about that. He roared with authority, Do not falter. We must win this war at any cost. With his shout, the whole army charged forward to crush that trash. He led the charge straight toward the enemy. Cheers echoed across the battlefield as the two sides clashed. On the other side, Marquis Teslan wore a sinister smile as he saw his opponent enter the fray. Bachik, you've finally joined the fight. He confidently swung his sword, unleashing his trump card. These knights are my weapons. Take this, Bachik Macklin. The steel cavalry of both sides collided like a cyclone, dust churning up, covering the entire sky. Lord Bachik Macklin led the charge, his spear tip glowing with a blazing red aura that enveloped both him and his warhorse. With a giant spear in hand, he lunged forward at breakneck speed, whispering to himself, First I have to break through their vanguard. The pressure from a high-ranking knight made the surrounding space feel like it was about to explode. With every stride of his lightning-fast horse, a cataclysmic collision occurred when Patrick's spear slammed into the enemy's shield. He blocked this attack in the middle of the fiery battlefield. Rick stood there shaken, gripping his spear tightly. Sweat poured off him like rain from fear. Screams of agony echoed everywhere. A soldier fell, groaning, My arm! My arm! Rick trembled, realizing the current situation was extremely tragic, whispering to himself, No, this is not good. The desperate cries for help from comrades being trampled under the enemy's feet only plunged him further into despair. Rick could only stand rooted to the spot, witnessing the Macklin army falling apart, and he screamed internally, This is bad. We're being pushed back. The cruelty of the war left a servant like Rick feeling nothing but resentment. What kind of war is this, that even servants like me have to fight? He understood that if he remained stuck here, death would surely find him. Lost in thought, Rick was suddenly knocked to the ground. He gasped in pain. Right at that moment, an enemy soldier lunged forward, spear poised, roaring, Die! Rick only had time to scream out a desperate, Ah! as the spear tip loomed near. Suddenly, a figure rushed in to block the fatal blow, leaving the enemy soldiers stunned. What? The enemy was immediately taken down, while a reinforcement soldier shouted, Hurry up! Grab the spear! Rick let out a sigh of relief, tears streaming down his face from joy. Reinforcements, I'm alive. He trembled as he thanked them. Thank you. But his joy was short-lived. The soldier who had just saved Rick's life collapsed with an arrow buried deep in his back. Screams of pain continued to ring out as an unrelenting rain of arrows from the enemy side poured down. Rick was horrified to realize he couldn't stay here for another second. He frantically turned to run. I have to run. As far away as possible. Amidst the chaotic screaming, Rick desperately ran past the corpses lying scattered everywhere, his heart filled with only one thought: he had to escape this hell on earth. Rick stood frozen, his face smeared with blood and sweat. His eyes widened in horror. Before him, a troop of enemy cavalry was thundering forward, surrounding the corpses lying scattered on the ground. Rick was completely desperate, his breath catching in his throat, as he realized he had been cornered, screaming in his mind, surrounded, "Is this how I'm going to die?" Meanwhile, Lord Macklin was still fighting for his life, his entire body radiating a blazing red killing intent as he dove into the enemy encirclement. He faced a mysterious, silver-armored knight who had just taken a direct hit from him but still maintained a mocking smile. Indeed worthy of the title of Baron, all your efforts have been in vain. Lord Macklin paused, his eyes revealing suspicion at his opponent's unusual attitude. His hand trembled from the pressure, secretly shocked that the opponent was still standing firm after his powerful attack. He could not have expected that Marquis Teslin could possess such a strong high-ranking knight while the others were only of mid-rank. Seeing the dark shadows slowly closing in, Lord Macklin roared with anger as he realized the enemy's scheme. "So this is why you were so confident, huh? These guys came here just to deal with me." The enemy knight smirked triumphantly, the streak of blood on his lips only adding to his sinister look. "Do you like the preparation I made, surrounded by the enemy's trap?" Lord Macklin understood that if he fell here, the entire knight force of the family would collapse completely. He gripped his sword and spurred his horse forward with all his inner energy bursting into flames. "I won't show you any mercy." Lord Macklin swung his sword with great power, forcing the enemy knight to moan in pain. With eyes burning with killing intent, he spurred his horse like a cyclone, sweeping away everyone in his path with fiery sword strikes. Suddenly, a razor-sharp spear from a blind spot suddenly thrust forward, forcing him to pause for a moment. He quickly dodged and used his sword to block the enemy's treacherous strike. Macklin roared in anger, "Damn it, you knights are truly shameless." The enemy soldiers were not only unafraid, but also retorted, dismissing them as nothing more than the final death throes of a dying man. Even while injured, one enemy knight had to warn his comrades not to be careless, because the Lord's power was truly nothing to sneeze at. His rage burst forth, Macklin radiating a blazing red inner energy that swept away those who dared to approach. However, in the midst of the chaotic battle, an enemy silently approached and launched a treacherous attack from behind. A cold spear pierced through his body, causing Macklin to gasp in pain. He struggled to stand up amidst the battlefield full of corpses. The Lord bitterly realized that even if he handled the experts here, the number difference between the two sides was still too great. The retreat path was completely cut off. Seeing that the rear had also fallen, Lord Macklin could only let out a tragic roar amidst the enemy encirclement. "Logan, please escape safely. At least our lineage won't be wiped out." Meanwhile, Marquis Teslin stood from afar observing the battlefield with a triumphant smile. He was smug because his plan to keep his high-ranking knight force hidden had worked perfectly. He gloated that now I just need to crush Patrick, take Macklin Castle, and then finally... But Teslin's smile suddenly froze when the sound of rapid hoofbeats suddenly echoed from the... A messenger soldier came galloping in, breathless and panicked, reporting to his lord about a strange cavalry unit of about 300 soldiers that had just appeared behind Teslin's lines. Stunned and unable to believe his own ears, how could McLean still have elite forces left? However, the soldier provided a bizarre detail, insisting that these troops weren't even carrying spears. Their only weapons were small handheld crossbows. Hearing this, Teslin immediately regained his arrogant, dismissive attitude, scoffing at a weapon he deemed fit only for hunters. He coldly ordered his rear guard and archers to deal with the men whom he believed were nothing but trash infantry. The soldier obeyed. "Yes, my lord," while Teslin remained convinced that victory was already firmly within his grasp. Marquis Teslin was shocked when an arrow whizzed past him. Trembling, he turned around and froze at the horrifying sight amidst the clouds of dust. Through the thick haze, a powerful cavalry unit was charging like a storm. Leading them was Logan, his gaze icy, a repeating crossbow in his hand. Logan scanned the battlefield, where only corpses lay scattered the air thick with the stench of blood. Desperate screams erupted as the soldiers of the clan were attacked without mercy. Witnessing the tragic sight of his people, Logan roared a steely command, "Fire!" The enemy commander turned pale with terror. Sweat poured down his face as he realized death was closing in. Instantly, thousands of arrows tore through the sky, a pitch-black rain of death descending to shred the enemy formation. They were caught completely off guard. A soldier gasped in total shock as he witnessed the terrifying firepower decimating the vanguard of Teslin's legion, a horrifying scene that sent the enemy into chaos. Desperate shrieks echoed as wave after wave of soldiers fell unable to fight back. A trembling soldier cried out, "Does the McLean clan have these kinds of troops?" These arrows repeatedly pierced through armor, leaving the enemy unable to resist falling like wheat in a field. Everyone who couldn't raise their shield died. The ground was now carpeted with bodies. In the midst of the carnage, a lucky survivor hid behind a shield, bristling with arrows, sweating profusely from fear, thinking to himself, "If I had been just a moment slower." Amidst the chaos and despair, a sharp, urgent shout rang out, "Counterattack, fire back!" An enemy archer braced himself to return fire, but his weak arrows only flew halfway before falling to the ground completely. Unable to reach Logan's cavalry, he froze, his face twisted in disbelief at the cruel reality. The arrows couldn't reach them while the enemy's range was overwhelming. The crossbow cavalry calmly reloaded and continued to rain down rapid-fire volleys from an incredible distance, tearing through the sky. The rear of Teslin's legion had turned into a chaotic mess in an instant. The arrows, with their impossible range, struck deep into the formation, terrifying the enemy as they realized they could shoot accurately. All the way to their position, Marquis Teslin turned pale, sweat drenching his clothes as he watched those crude crossbows cause such terrifying destruction. He hissed through his teeth, "They aren't even using magic. Just those damn crossbows. What kind of weapons did you create?" Patchik, realizing the tide was turning for the worse, Teslin madly ordered his cavalry, "Pull the riders from the front line, advance, crush those bastards." Receiving the order, the enemy cavalry immediately turned and spurred their horses forward with a war cry. "Hiya!" They lined up, raised their weapons, and roared with killing intent. "Advance, wipe them all out." Facing the charging cavalry, Logan maintained a strangely calm demeanor. He looked straight at the enemy, his eyes blazing with defiance, and a sinister smile playing on his lips. Logan whispered, leaning in, mockingly, "They're walking right into it." The clash of two swords rang out, signaling the start of a fierce duel. Ronion gritted his teeth, absorbing the pressure from his opponent's blade, his breathing becoming ragged, when he narrowly avoided a fatal blow. He dodged by a hair's breadth, prompting the enemy knight to exclaim in surprise, "Not bad, kid." Just then another knight rushed over, urging his comrade, "Real, we don't have time for games. The battle is taking a strange turn." At that, the one named Ryu immediately retorted, insisting he wasn't playing around because Ronion was much stronger than he looked. He pointed frantically behind his comrade, "I'm not joking behind. You—" The other knight turned back, completely baffled by what was happening. While the enemy was distracted, Ronion tried to regulate his breathing, sweat streaming down his dirt-streaked face. He realized bitterly that this was a real battlefield, not a safe sparring session. Knowing he wasn't a genius, but just a child who had only recently awakened his inner power, Ronion gripped his sword hilt tighter. "No matter what, I cannot lose." The image of his stern father and the promise to fight in his brother's stead flashed through his mind, giving Ronion strength. His eyes glowed with a red light. He told himself he absolutely could not fall here. Suddenly, Ronion was stunned to see the enemy knights suddenly exposing fatal openings behind them, flailing their swords at thin air as if fighting invisible enemies. Not missing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Ronion lunged like an arrow. "Whatever it is, this is my chance to survive." He unleashed a powerful slash, his blade cutting cleanly through the enemy's armor. Looking down at the ground, he noticed rows of crossbow bolts embedded everywhere, leaving him stunned and wondering about their origin. Ronyan stared blankly as the enemy fell at his feet. He looked up frozen when he saw a familiar silhouette, leading the cavalry forward. He couldn't help but gasp in amazement. That's Logan. The sudden appearance of his brother in his moment of greatest despair made Ronyan burst with joy. His savior had arrived just in time. But the battlefield had no room for reunions. Noticing the threat from behind, the enemy commander roared madly, "Attack the ones with the crossbows, that is the Lord's command." Immediately, the enemy cavalry spurred their horses forward, creating a thunderous sound of hooves that shook the earth to crush Logan's forces. Facing the enemy cavalry, which was tightly shielded in a defensive formation, Logan remained incredibly composed. He silently assessed, "Shields, I have to say that's a decent defensive formation." However, a sinister smile appeared on Logan's lips when he found a fatal flaw. He coldly ordered his archers, "Aim low, target the horses' fire." As soon as Logan's shout ended, thousands of arrows were fired in unison, embedding straight into the legs and bellies of the warhorses. The horses shrieked in agony as they collapsed to the ground, dragging the enemy knights down in a pathetic heap. The enemy soldiers panicked, screaming, "Whoa, hold it together, I'm falling off my horse." Teslin's mighty cavalry formation has completely crumbled, turning into total chaos under the feet of Logan's crossbowmen. Logan looks at the enemy cavalry toppling over and sneers with contempt, "Idiots." He breathes a sigh of relief that he arrived in time to support Ronan, but his mind immediately turns to his father. Father is in danger, Logan thinks to himself. Victory would mean nothing if I lost my family in this lifetime. He roars, "Kai, take command!" Kai Solon is stunned by the young master's decision. "What? But our plan was to attack from outside their range." He stares at Logan. Alone, Logan spurs his horse straight into the encirclement of the enemy's mid-level knights. Fearing this is a suicide mission, Kai Solon can't just watch and screams in desperation, "Damn it, protect Lord Logan." Meanwhile, Lord Macklin is being cornered. The enemy knight grins savagely. "I can't believe you actually ran back here, knowing you'd be stabbed like that." Macklin stands tall in the middle of the battlefield filled with corpses. He groans in pain, but suddenly freezes when he senses something extremely strange is happening. He notices the enemy knights are attacking so crazily and recklessly that they are putting themselves in danger. He can't help but wonder, why? Why are they so desperate, even though they're winning? The deafening sound of clashing metal rings out repeatedly as he braces himself against the relentless attacks from every direction. The encirclement is tightening. Macklin grinds his teeth, enduring the suffocating pressure. Sweat drips down his scarred face. He curses under his breath. Damn it. Just when the situation seems completely hopeless, Logan descends from midair like a god of war, his eyes glowing with intensity. He swings his sword with a powerful strike, creating a monumental explosion that crushes all the enemies in front of his father. Witnessing the terrifying power that wiped out the enemy in an instant, Lord Macklin is stunned. He wonders, what the hell just happened? Through the smoke dust and roaring fire, Logan's silhouette gradually appears with a calm smile. He speaks softly, "I have arrived just in time." As the last enemy knight falls to the ground, standing tall amidst the roaring sea of fire, Logan radiates an overwhelming presence that silences the entire battlefield for a moment. Seeing his son return with unimaginable strength, right at the moment of life and death, Lord Macklin can only gasp in absolute astonishment. Lord Macklin stares at Logan. Filled with shock, deep amazement rises within him. He thinks to himself that he had seen his son leading a mercenary group charging from far away, but amidst the thick enemy encirclement. How could Logan break through to get here? Looking at the corpses scattered all around, he is shocked, wondering if Logan really defeated them all, and when his son became this strong. But then, he immediately brushes those wandering thoughts aside because that doesn't matter anymore. Lord Macklin speaks up. "I don't know how the battle went, but He freezes for a few beats, because his son leveled up way too hard. Looking straight into Logan's eyes, he asks to confirm his last shred of hope. "You're here, which means the advantage has shifted to our side, right?" Logan flashes a confident smile and asserts decisively, "That's right." Receiving that firm answer, Lord Macklin breathes a sigh of relief. He places a hand on his son's shoulder proudly and praises him. "Good. You did well." On the other side of the front line, the enemy commander is trembling in shock. He can't believe a youth of only about 20 years old could destroy 2 mid-level knights at once. He remembers himself at that age having to work extremely hard just to become a knight, and feels Logan's presence is an insult to his own efforts. He grinds his teeth, tightens his grip on the sword hilt, eyes burning with bloodlust, and casts aside all shock. No, that doesn't matter because he's going to die right here. He roars, ordering his subordinates, "Rick, Tom, Ben, what are you two doing? Get into position." But the only response is the painful moans of those who have already fallen. Witnessing the superiority of Lord Macklin's son, he calculates. Even though he knows Logan is strong, he is currently not yet a high-level knight. He worries that fighting mid-level knights will be a bit difficult for Logan, so he intends to handle those two himself while he deals with the highest-level knight. Just as he places a hand on his shoulder to advise him, Logan looks straight ahead with determined eyes and declares firmly, "I will go first." Lord Macklin worries and tries to stop him when he sees his son intending to face the dangerous enemies. "No, that's too much for you. No matter how strong you are, this is very difficult." He coughs slightly because his wounds are too severe, but Logan promptly puts a hand on his father's shoulder to reassure him, his gaze firm as he asserts, "One day, I will surpass you. Trust me and leave it to me." Seeing Logan's maturity and determination, Lord Macklin nods in approval. "I understand." He places his full trust in his eldest son. "It all depends on you, my son." The two father and son stand back to back amidst the enemy encirclement. Logan says decisively, "Let's finish them off quickly, father." He takes the initiative, swinging his sword and charging straight at the opponents, making the enemy knight gasp in surprise. "That guy, he dares to attack me!" The enemy knight grinds his teeth in outrage and roars, filled with anger, "How dare you!" He radiates a crimson bloodlust and charges madly, intending to finish Logan off. However, Logan maintains a cold expression. He radiates a bright golden internal energy that covers his entire body and easily dodges the tricky attacks with incredible speed. He glides through the battlefield like a ghost, preparing to deliver the punishment. Logan continuously closes in, executing lightning-fast sword swings that leave the enemy unable to react and sent flying far away. A powerful collision occurs. Logan pours all his strength, pressing his blade, forcing the enemy knight to grind his teeth in defense in absolute helplessness and terror. Logan and the enemy knight charge at each other, creating a spark-filled collision. The enemy is stunned. What? He re-evaluates the situation. Looking at Logan's wounds earlier, he thought the guy wasn't stronger than him at all. But the harsh reality is that he is gradually being completely overwhelmed by Logan. He reassures himself that Logan must have poured every ounce of his life force into that powerful move just now. An evil grin reappears on the sweat-drenched face of the enemy knight. A burst of internal energy explodes violently when the two swords touch once again. The enemy grinds his teeth, thinking that if it weren't for Logan having exhausted himself, it would be absurd for him to be stronger. He madly swings his sword, charging forward and screaming, "Die! Facing!" The approaching sword tip, Logan keeps his cold gaze and high concentration. Both engage in a lightning-fast sword fight. The deafening sound of clashing metal rings out repeatedly amidst the battlefield. Logan stomps his foot hard into the ground, creating a large tremor, then pours power into his next strike. Both fall into a suffocating deadlock as sparks splash. The two swords clashed, locked tightly together. The enemy knight gritted his teeth in pain, his heart gripped by terror. "Damn it! He isn't even wounded yet. While Logan's eyes remained razor-sharp, he suddenly surged with a fiery aura, unleashing a powerful blow that left his opponent struggling to defend. The force of the collision was immense, causing the enemy knight to stagger, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. Logan stood tall, closing every gap to deny his opponent a moment to catch his breath. There was no space left. Though severely wounded, the enemy knight struggled to his feet. He wiped the blood from his chin silently, telling himself that he had to seize this opportunity. To launch a counterattack, he stared intently at Logan, preparing for one final desperate strike. The enemy knight wore a sinister sneer, but Logan's expression remained ice-cold. Logan declared firmly, "Let's end this." A golden inner aura, glowing like fire, began to wrap around his sword, creating a suffocating pressure that forced his opponent to be cautious. The enemy stood stunned, admitting to himself that he was completely mesmerized, unable to take his eyes off that damn sword. Sensing his chance, the enemy knight thought, "Good, all right." He unleashed a fierce crimson aura, stomped the ground, and poured all his strength into the hands gripping his sword hilt. He didn't waste a second, immediately turning and channeling all his inner energy into his blade to deliver a punishing blow. He roared with manic excitement, "This is it, my chance." A brilliant streak of steel descended with all the power he could muster, but his blade only grazed the air. Logan had vanished from his sight as if by magic. The enemy gasped in shock. "Only hit his sleeve." He frantically looked back, breaking out in a cold sweat. He couldn't understand how his opponent could move at such an absurd speed. A sense of unease consumed his mind. The enemy knight trembled, realizing something wrong was happening right behind him. The enemy knight was horrified to realize his own body was slowing down, weighed down by an immense pressure. He shivered, wondering, "Have I slowed down?" Meanwhile, Logan remained perfectly calm. He whispered, "Fire sword." A fierce flaming aura erupted, engulfing his blade, causing the enemy to scream in terror, "Damn it, run!" Not giving his opponent a chance to escape, Logan immediately unleashed his ultimate move, the first technique, Giant Fire Sword. A massive flaming greatsword descended from above. The knight only had time to gasp in despair. "No! Hein! Way!" The slash carried a destructive force that carved a sky-high pillar of fire, tearing through the earth and crushing everything in its path. Witnessing this earth-shattering, Power Lord Macklin Ronan and all the surrounding soldiers stood frozen in pure shock. After the energy-draining attack, Logan breathed heavily. His eyes never left the smoking scene. The ground was now split into a deep trench, a testament to the terrifying power of that move. Logan looked coldly down at the fallen enemy general and mocked, "Whatever tricks you use, it's all the same." Logan proudly raised his flaming sword to the sky and bellowed, declaring to the entire army, "I, Logan Macklin, have slain the enemy general." This shocking news sent the Teslan army into instant chaos and terror. The enemy soldiers trembled, unable to believe the harsh reality. A high-ranking knight has been defeated. That's absurd. Panic spread wide as they realized the command flag had fallen and their supreme commander had been completely crushed. The Teslan troops were now completely broken. They wailed in despair, "Surrender, please spare my life, I don't want to die here." Others simply hung their heads helpless. "What else can we do?" Cries of, "I surrender, me too, I surrender," echoed across the battlefield as they threw down their weapons to save their lives. Conversely, the Macklin side erupted in joy. Rick shouted through tears, "Long live the Grand Duke!" Rick's face was smeared with blood, but he wore a radiant, happy smile. He yelled, "Hurrah, long live Logan Macklin! Long live the Grand Duke!" echoed across the sky as the Macklin army achieved a glorious victory. However, amidst the joyous atmosphere, a dark figure was silently spurring his horse to flee into the night. It was Marquis Teslan, who was running away frantically with immense resentment. Where on earth did I go wrong? He couldn't believe that a war he had prepared for 3 years with an elite unit of 100 knights had collapsed in an instant. Teslin gritted his teeth and roared, "It's that red-haired bastard, those troops and that damn weapon." That ruined everything. Logan's cold gaze haunted him, fueling his rage. He urged his horse to return to his territory first. Teslin believed that if he just reached his fortified castle, he could survive. That was the only way to live. Just as he reached the gate, he yelled, ordering the guards, "Open the gate! Your master has returned." The guard on the ramparts hurriedly replied, "Yes, my lord." But just as he was about to sigh in relief, the guard suddenly froze. He squinted at the distant horizon where dust was billowing violently. "Huh! Something is coming!" The guard cried out in panic. The cavalry leading that army was none other than Logan, with a gaze as cold as ice, as if to pierce the enemy's soul. Seeing the small cavalry unit had chased him right to his doorstep, Teslin turned pale, sweat pouring down him in terror. He only managed to curse in despair. "Damn it!" Logan roared with fury upon seeing Marquis Teslin frantically running for his life. "You bastard! You're running quite fast, aren't you?" Just as Teslin managed to slip into the castle, Logan stood alone and imposing before the main gate facing the long line of soldiers, guarding the towering walls. He loudly announced a shocking piece of news that made the air freeze. "Teslin has been defeated. Open the gates and greet the victor." This firm assertion caused the guards to panic instantly. They trembled, looking at each other, wondering if their army had truly fallen, which was why the Viscount had to return in such disgrace. Seeing the soldiers' morale wavering, a commander shouted to steady the ranks, "Brothers, do not believe the enemy's words." Out of fear, he intentionally belittled the opponent, claiming the enemy had at most about 300 men, completely insufficient to surround or defeat a fortified castle in a single attack. Standing at the foot of the wall, Logan maintained his cold, enigmatic expression. His sharp gaze made the guards above feel uneasy, wondering, what is he doing? Suddenly, Logan stomped hard on the ground, channeling all his inner energy to execute a terrifying burst of speed. He dashed forward at wind-like velocity, vanishing from the enemy's sight in an instant, leaving them only able to gasp in shock. He disappeared. No way! To the utter terror of the guards, Logan glided through the air like a phantom, clearing the height of the fortified castle wall with just a single leap. Logan, landing on the ramparts like the god of death, Logan exuded such a murderous aura that everyone shuddered at his final threat. "Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens next." In the pitch-black room, Marquis Haman Tederon was frantically rummaging through drawers, drenched in a cold sweat of pure terror as he shoved jewelry and gold into a box. He muttered in desperation, "I have to at least take some gold." But just as he turned to escape, a cold voice echoed from behind, freezing him in his tracks. "Finally caught you." Tederon fell to the ground in horror, his breath hitching as he realized the Reaper had come knocking right among the treasures he was trying to steal from his own mansion. Logan stepped in casually. He revealed a bitter truth that left the Marquis shattered. "Your own servant told me exactly where you were." Logan smirked sinisterly, firmly asserting that every move his opponent made was already in the palm of his hand. "I know exactly what you're planning right now." Tederon gritted his teeth, in hatred, sweat streaming down his pale face as he stared intensely at Logan, cursing inwardly, "You bastard, you actually followed me." He tried to scramble backward in a panic as he saw Logan closing in, realizing that death was imminent. Tederon immediately threw away all his pride, raising his hands in a desperate plea. "Wait, I surrender." He babbled out promises, hoping to trade them for his life. "I will compensate you with gold or cede the territory by law." He begged for one last way out for himself. "But please just let me and my family stay here." Logan gave a slight cynical and cold smile. "By law, you say? Ha!" His eyes burned with disdain as he recalled the Marquis's cruelty. "You arbitrarily declared a regional war and attacked in a single day. That's the law." Logan stepped closer, looking straight at the shivering, defeated man on the ground and growled, "Haman Tederon, don't you feel any remorse?" In his desperation, Teteron tried to cling to noble rules to save his own skin. You have to protect the noble honor of the aristocracy. Ensuring the safety of captured prisoners is customary in regional warfare. Logan slowly closed his eyes and coldly replied, "Noble honor, huh, fine. We the Macklin family always respect honor and the law." He decisively delivered his final verdict. "So, I will spare you, but you and your family must pack up and leave here." Teteron burst into joy, hurriedly bowing his head in thanks. Thank you." Logan looked at the trembling Marcus and said coldly, "My father said this. He accepts your unconditional surrender because to him, honor is everything." Teteron let out a sigh of relief, thinking he had truly saved his own life, thanks to the mercy of Lord Macklin. Logan stepped toward the jewelry box, picked up an exquisite jewel-encrusted dagger, and remarked, "This sword is nice." Seeing Logan's interest, Teteron eagerly offered it, hoping to curry favor. "You can take it. It's a handmade piece created by the best craftsman in the kingdom." But Logan stared straight into his eyes and firmly refused. He handed the sword back to the bewildered Marquis and added, "You should keep it." Before Teteron could even understand what was happening, Logan suddenly struck, leaving him no chance to react. In excruciating pain, Teteron screamed, "Ah, you promised." Logan looked down with eyes as cold as ice and calmly replied, "I said my father agreed to spare your life." He growled with murderous intent, "But sorry I didn't." Teteron could no longer fight back. He stammered in despair, "Well, what? The noble honor." Logan smirked with contempt at the hypocrisy. "You're talking about noble honor. Do you even know how many people have died because of your greed? Huh?" Logan unleashed his overwhelming pressure and decisively declared, "End your life here, you villain." Teteron's eyes widened, then went completely vacant in resentment. Looking at the motionless corpse, Logan calmly muttered, "You should feel lucky that you were allowed to die so easily. Just like that." He silently looked at his hand where blood had stained his combat glove. After the life-or-death battle, Logan stood up in the quiet room, his eyes fixed on the dim light with determination. The crucial moment is finally here. He told himself he had to end this personally. After secretly taking care of Teteron to avoid future trouble, he shouted out, "To inform all the soldiers present at the stronghold, Viscount Haemon Teteron has committed suicide." This shocking news spread rapidly, officially putting an end to the existence of the greedy lord. Looking down at the fully fallen stronghold, Logan thought to himself, "That's enough." Just then, a knight hurried over to find him. "There you are." Seeing the other man's serious expression, Logan asked, "What is it?" The knight suggested, "I think you should come to the dungeon for a moment." Logan asked in surprise, "The dungeon?" "Yes, sir." The definitive answer left him curious about what was happening behind those bars. A few days later, once his strength had gradually recovered, Logan joined his father. Standing on the breezy ramparts under the sunset, Lord Macklin mused about his son's trip after his recovery. "You went to Teteron Castle, and then what?" Hearing the report about the death of his arch-rival, Lord Macklin asked in shock. "Haemon committed suicide." Logan maintained his calm demeanor. He nonchalantly replied, "Yes, it's quite irritating, because he's already dead." Suspicion was evident on the father's face. He looked straight into his son's eyes and pressed, "Did you kill him?" Under the heavy silence, the Lord stepped closer, staring at Logan as if to search for the truth. Finally, Logan no longer hid it and decisively admitted, "Yes, I intentionally killed him." Not dodging the issue, but getting straight to the point, Logan clearly explained the reason for his ruthless action. "Teteron's castle should be returned to the Macklin family. I didn't want him to live and leave behind future trouble." Witnessing the resolve and foresight of his son, Lord Macklin suddenly laughed with satisfaction. "Ha, you've grown up, and you have your own opinions now." Logan softly replied, "With respect, You've changed too, father. Lord Macklin looked toward the distant horizon. He asserted firmly, regardless of what anyone says, you are the person who deserves the most credit for this victory. He hesitated for a moment, as if making the most important decision of his life. So, I will let you try for the position of head of the Macklin family. This was the highest recognition that Father a Lord could bestow upon his most worthy successor. Logan looked at his father and called out softly, Father. Seeing the Lord nod with expectation and trust, Logan took a deep breath to steady his stance. He smiled brightly, but his words left everyone stunned. I'm sorry. I respectfully decline. You're declining the position of family head, Lord, Macklin asked in shock, unable to believe his ears. He thought that if Logan was worried about what others might say, then this glorious achievement was more than enough to turn the tide and cement his position. Yet Logan remained calm, asserting that wasn't the real reason he was refusing. Under his father's probing gaze, he frankly expressed, because I feel Ronin is better suited for a knightly family like the Macklin clan than I am. Logan began to analyze the terrifying talent of his younger brother who, being able to use power at just 14, 5 years earlier than him, Logan quietly assessed the achievements the boy might reach in the future. It's impossible to predict, Lord Macklin said after a long contemplative silence. Even if you say that, no one becomes the clan head just because they have strength, Logan. Logan reflected on the philosophy of leadership. It requires deep thinking, not just raw stats to auto-win. Logan stayed silent, watching his father. He knew well that this was the norm of this era, but based on memories from his past life, he knew Ronin would become the youngest Aura Knight in the land, a perfect genius with no weaknesses. Because of that, Logan told himself he didn't need to be the successor, and he didn't want to waste any more time on stifling training sessions. He already saw the future meta, so he could get a head start and avoid all that hassle. As an older brother, Logan sincerely suggested, I want to give my younger brother a chance to shine, so I hope you'll postpone choosing the successor until Ronin is old enough. Lord Macklin beamed with joy, deeply moved that his eldest son cared so much for his brother, and he readily accepted. I accept your proposal. I will postpone choosing the successor for 5 years until Ronin comes of age. Logan bowed slightly to thank his father. Lord Macklin continued affirming that even though Logan refused the position of clan head, he would certainly receive other worthy rewards. He silently calculated that upon returning, he would tally up the spoils of war. The number would surely be at least several 100,000 gold. Hearing this, Logan smiled enigmatically and asked, In that case, may I ask you for one thing? Shortly after, the victorious army returned to the territory to a warm welcome. The guards' shouts echoed as they spotted the knights in the distance. The Macklin Knights have returned. The news spread, causing the whole city to explode in loud cheers. Logan, along with his father and brother, rode proudly into the sea of cheering people, marking the glorious return of the Macklin clan after the life-and-death battle. They fought and made it back. Whispers echoed through the streets as the victorious army marched in. The people were shocked that the battle had ended so quickly in just a single day. Rumors began to spread. They said it was all thanks to Grand Duke Logan. That fool Logan, someone shouted in disbelief. Immediately, another person corrected them. According to reports from the soldiers, Logan's mercenary squad turned the tide with a weapon of unprecedented power, and he himself took down a high-ranking enemy knight. Amazement washed over the crowd. A girl exclaimed, Is the Grand Duke really that outstanding? Old prejudices about a madman began to fade. In their place was admiration. The people began to piece everything together from the controversial monster meat purchase earlier. Now they believed it was all part of Logan's grand plan. Chills ran down their spines as they thought those bad deeds were perhaps just an act to deceive the world, and Logan was truly a genius. His reputation was rebranded from suspicious to legendary after just one win. Hearing the endless praise, Logan felt incredibly embarrassed. His face turned bright red, though he tried to keep a stern expression. Ronan, walking beside him, didn't miss the chance to tease him. "How does it feel everyone is praising you?" Despite Logan's awkwardness, Ronan cheerfully insisted that what they were saying was the truth. The boy urged him, "They're welcoming you like this. You should at least smile back at them." Logan asked awkwardly, "Smile?" Under the expectant gazes of the people waiting for a smile from their hero, Logan tried to force one out to return their affection. However, instead of a radiant smile, his face became so sinister and terrifying that the crowd instantly went silent. Their faces turned pale with horror. Someone trembled and gasped, "What's with that smile? Is he trying to kill us?" Fear engulfed them as they wondered if he wanted to eat them. Ronan, standing next to him, also broke into a cold sweat at his brother's awkward expression, while the people desperately lamented that they were doomed. Lord Macklin placed a hand on Logan's head. A radiant smile appeared on his majestic face after the glorious victory, and he roared, "Now, to celebrate our victory, let's hold a grand celebratory feast." The cheers of "Long live the Macklins! Long live Grand Duke Logan!" echoed throughout the sky, signaling a sleepless night at the majestic castle glowing under the night sky. Late at night, Logan walked silently down the empty corridor, sighing softly as he heard the noise from the party that hadn't ceased, a celebration that would last until morning. Back from a battle and still have this much energy, huh? Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through his thoughts. "What the hell are you thinking, huh?" Logan stopped and saw Ronan anxiously leading Lady Macklin over. She looked at him with eyes full of hatred and suspicion, asking sharply, "I heard you refused the successor position, didn't you?" Rage made Lady Macklin lose her composure. She shrieked, "You! What kind of plot do you have? I don't know about others, but don't try to fool me." Ronan quickly intervened. "Mother, wait." He turned to Logan with a regretful look. "Brother, I'm sorry because the heartbreak of what happened to our family has made her—" Logan kept his calm smile and gently replied, "Ronan, it's okay." Looking at the trembling woman before him, Logan quietly assessed that even though she held a grudge, she had lost her power due to being betrayed and was no longer a threat. He wondered if she would accept a sincere apology from him now. Logan looked deep into her eyes and said in a low voice, "Mother, I know, but you, that the things I did over the past few years weren't just out of jealousy and insecurity, but the things I did, I deeply regret them." The unexpected admission left her stunned for a moment, before she immediately pointed at Ronan and shrieked triumphantly, "See, Ronan, he's admitting it! He has!" Ronan screamed in pain. "Mother, please stop!" He turned to Logan, worriedly explaining that his mother's mental state wasn't right at the moment. But Logan looked at his younger brother with a very serious gaze and affirmed, "Listen, Adia, to me, Ronan Macklin. The person I actually owe an apology to is you." Ronan was stunned, stammering in confusion. "What you—" "I intended to tell you after we returned, but I haven't done it yet." Logan thought to himself, feeling that even if he regretted it for decades, he couldn't defeat the cowardly nature within himself. Seeing his brother's hesitation, Ronan asked in confusion, "Brother, what are you saying?" Logan looked straight into his brother's eyes and stated firmly, "But I want you to understand this, Ronan. For the past several years, I have hated you so much." Ronan was stunned, sweat pouring down, from the shock of the blunt truth. Standing there, Lady Macklin maintained a cold expression watching as Logan continued to pour his heart out, admitting he had cowardly avoided the feeling. Overcome by the guilt of how he had mistreated his younger brother, Logan stood tall and spoke clearly, telling Ronan that he was truly deeply sorry for everything. "I want to officially apologize to you, Ronan. I am truly sorry." Ronan stood frozen in silence while Logan scolded himself for being so naive to think that a simple apology could make up for all the terrible things he had done in the past. Suddenly, Ronan gently lifted his head and replied, "It's okay. It's all right, brother. The boy looked at Logan with trust in his eyes, affirming that no matter what the past was, Logan was doing great in the present. Ronan placed a hand on his chest and smiled brightly. "I believe that one day you will become my wonderful brother again." Seeing his younger brother's forgiveness, Logan secretly blamed himself, wondering why he had hesitated to do something so simple. Logan called out for Ronan, then turned to Lady Macklin and said, "Mother," firmly asserting that the affection he held for Ronan was genuine. Looking into her eyes, he expressed his sincere hope that Ronan would become the most worthy successor of the family. Logan understood that asking her to trust him immediately was asking too much, so he accepted that he would need time and promised to use real actions to prove everything to her. Before that sincerity, Lady Macklin could only stand in silence, bowing her head in thought. Logan smiled with relief, telling himself, "That's done." He quietly walked away under the full moon, ending a night full of changes. Dawn broke, and the brilliant sunlight pierced through the forest canopy, opening up a promising new beginning. While strolling through the lush green forest, Hema, the blacksmith, curiously asked, "My lord, where do you intend to go after returning from the war?" Logan nonchalantly replied that the old man had rested enough, and now it was time to get back to work. Hema muttered, filled with worry, fearing that this young master was preparing to squeeze the life out of him once again. Logan smiled to reassure him, saying this was work he would surely enjoy, which made Hema skeptically ask if he truly knew what he liked. Logan stopped before a vast valley. He raised his hand in an excited, booming greeting and announced, "From now on, we are going to create a mine." It was a soft announcement, but it sounded like he was launching a new resource extraction server. "I want to claim a mountain as my reward and develop it," Lord Macklin asked in surprise when hearing his son's strange request, wondering why Logan wanted the desolate mountain near the border of Teteron, a place that had nothing but barren rock and dirt. Logan just smiled mysteriously and replied that who knew, maybe there was gold and silver buried in that wasteland. In reality, Logan was holding a world-shattering secret from his past life. He knew clearly that the reason the Teteron family risked everything to wage war was because of a giant gold mine hidden deep inside that mountain. In his previous life, after capturing this land, Teteron became rich, quickly possessing power far beyond a normal baron's family until they were destroyed by the fury and hatred of Ronan. Logan ventured deep into the dungeon of Teteron Castle, following the suggestion of a close knight. Behind the iron bars, an old man with silver hair, wearing glasses, frantically clung to the bars and screamed in agony, "We are innocent of everything." He revealed that the Viscount of Teteron had imprisoned them there, to force them to extract gold from the ores that he brought in. Haman Teteron imprisoned 5 craftsmen who create treasures here. Logan pondered his hand, covering his face in calculation at the cruelty of the Viscount. Seeing the expression of the young master, the old engineer trembled and asked if he was angry because of them. Logan suddenly broke into a sinister smile, his eyes shining with murderous intent as he told himself, "This is a huge harvest beyond my expectations." This made those in the dungeon tremble at his presence. The victory over Teteron, though glorious to Logan, was just a small wave before a major flood to come. He knew clearly that within just 1 year, the catastrophe of the Empire's invasion would cause the entire country to collapse completely. Everything started from the sudden death of the current king Samuel von Grandia, leading to a brutal civil war for the throne between the 3 princes. The war, lasting 3 years, exhausted the nation's strength, providing a golden opportunity for the Empire to pour in and destroy everything. In the memories of his past life, the Macklin family chose a neutral stance to observe the situation, but this time, Logan realized this was a once-in-a-millennium opportunity to restore his old territory and regain the leadership of the Southwest. He even harbored the ambition to end this brutal civil war. While lost in his schemes, Hema, the blacksmith, approached and asked, "Master, "What are you thinking gathering everyone here like this?" Logan looked at him and the group of engineers he had just rescued, thinking to himself that if he said he knew the future, they would surely think he was a madman. He calmly reassured them, "This even you don't know about yet. Don't worry. Now, you don't need to worry anymore." Logan affirmed that he would pay out of his own pocket to carry out this plan, turning the mountain before them into a literal mountain of money. He looked toward the towering peak and shouted his goal. "There is gold ore on this mountainside. I want to dig it up and create a mine to extract it." Looking at Hema and the group of experts, who were standing stunned, Logan asked straight to the point, "You guys estimate how much capital it will cost?" A completely ridiculous idea, Hema the blacksmith thought when hearing Logan's plan. The head engineer who had just been rescued was also full of skepticism. He had followed Logan only because of the generous pay compared to Teteron, but he didn't expect this young master to dream of an unimaginable gold mine. He hesitated and asked, "Are you sure there is Diono's gold here?" Logan nonchalantly replied, "Of course, why not?" When questioned about the basis, Logan pointed straight at his own eyes and boomed, "My own eyes have seen it." The answer was so decisive that it left the engineer stunned to the point of being unable to utter a word. Logan immediately ordered, "Everyone pay attention because this is a secret. It must be done in silence. First, drilling the ground." The engineer heard this and immediately panicked and screamed, "Oh, are you trying to kill us? There are only 6 of us. How are we supposed to drill?" He kept whining that no matter how many people there were, this was still a crazy mission. He desperately turned to look at Hema, hoping the blacksmith would speak up to confirm that this was impossible so that Logan would abandon the idea. But contrary to expectations, Hema pondered and then firmly said, "No, nothing is impossible if we are ready to sacrifice." He smiled a crazy smile, affirming that as long as they slept less and sacrificed their own lives, everything could be accomplished. The engineer could only hold his head in despair. "Oh no, we're screwed." Logan looked at Hema and silently marveled that this old slave was truly looking like a real engineer ready to face the challenge. He turned to ask about the cost estimate, and the engineer sighed, giving a shocking number, the cost to spend. At the beginning, could be up to 5 million gold. He further explained that for the extraction process to be stable, it would take half a year to prepare and another half year to complete. Logan calculated silently. It was just as he had predicted. This gold mine cost too much time and money, but this was the source of strength that helped Teteron become incredibly wealthy in his past life. He told himself, no matter what happens, I have to develop this too. Logan sighed softly, wishing he could sell that pile of monster meat right now. It would provide the capital he needed, but it would take another year before people truly understood its value. Suddenly an idea struck him, and he froze. Wait, do I really have to wait that long? Logan realized the monster meat could be turned into medicine instantly. He just needed to find a way to extract all the toxins. Logan told himself that if it just required a neutralizing agent, he could easily make it himself. His experience as a mercenary in his past life had helped him use it countless times. I'll make the medicine myself and sell it. Logan smiled, full of calculation. A week later at the Macklin territory, Rick was drenched in sweat, reporting that the work was finished. He explained that this strange medicine consisted of evening primrose herbs and crushed grass. But Logan corrected him immediately, saying it wasn't strange medicine, but a neutralizing agent. Logan asked about the monster meat, and Rick replied that it had been cut and stored, just as you ordered, young master. Logan excitedly gave the command, "Good, now let's go to the warehouse and use this neutralizer to process the monster meat." Rick's face turned pale with horror as he stammered, "Wait, I'm going too." At Logan's firm affirmation, Rick screamed miserably, not wanting to go at all. "I hate it so much, Lord Logan. You haven't been to the warehouse, so you don't know." Rick's constant fussing really got on Logan's nerves. He silently cursed the butler for being so annoying. But then Logan's own face changed color. He quickly covered his nose and blurted out, "Ugh, what is that? What is that horrible smell?" Logan was shocked as he approached the warehouse area. The stench was so pungent it made him nauseous to the point of turning pale, while Rick behind him had already collapsed and was retching uncontrollably. To cope, Logan immediately focused on channeling his inner energy to paralyze his own sense of smell. Breathing a sigh of relief, because he no longer had to endure the odor, he decisively, "Let's do this. All right, let's go in." Rick jumped up in surprise, not understanding how the young master could suddenly be so steady and calm in the face of such a disgusting smell. Logan calmly explained that it was his divine power that allowed him to disable his sense of smell, leaving Rick only able to feel jealous, silently cursing, "Just he has that ability, how hateful." Logan urged everyone to get to work immediately to avoid any delays. He held a handful of white powder and began giving detailed instructions. "Now apply the neutralizer to this meat, just enough to make the skin turn white." He didn't forget to warn him, "The black layer is where the toxins are, so you have to be extremely careful." "Understood." Immediately after, they began mincing the processed monster meat, then used their hands to press it firmly into small blocks. Logan held the small brown pill up in front of Rick's face and asked, "How is it? Doesn't it look like a pill?" Rick was still dazed, not understanding what was happening. Logan explained that everything was finished. Now they would sell it as a type of medicine, and he told Rick to memorize the process. Rick immediately protested violently because he hated this smelly job so much. "What? No, I don't want to. I hate this." Logan calmly offered a payment of 100 gold coins per week. Immediately, Rick's attitude did a 180-degree turn. He smiled contentedly and accepted. Well, that changes things. Looking at the greedy butler, Logan silently thought to himself that he certainly couldn't stiff him on this money. "All right," he continued. "First we need to test the medicine's effectiveness." Rick asked out of curiosity, "What are the effects?" Logan replied briefly, "It's good for men." Rick was still confused and asked, "What does that mean?" Logan appeared annoyed and snapped lightly, "Ugh, how annoying. I'll only say this once, so listen carefully." To explain it to the slow-witted butler, he used the example of a rabbit that was exhausted from overworking. Once it takes this pill, Bius, the little rabbit, will instantly wake up, its eyes shining with energy. The burst of power makes it use a pestle to pound medicine incessantly at a terrifying speed, muscles bulging, transforming into a giant, powerful rabbit. Logan smugly asked again, "Understand now, Rick?" At this moment, Rick's face was flushed with excitement, and he nodded repeatedly. Hey, understood. It's truly an amazing effect." He had an idea and suggested, "I know someone who would be perfect to test it on." When Logan curiously asked who it was, Rick immediately named the manager, Wei. Outside, Wei was still busy checking the ledgers, completely unaware that he was about to become the test subject for the young master's new vitality-boosting medicine. Being busy with the ledgers, peaceful and quiet, and suddenly being called out, Wei felt something was up. He cautiously approached, knocked on the door, and said, "Sir, it's Wei." Hearing Logan's permission to enter, he stepped inside, but curiously asked if there was something urgent. Looking around the empty room, Wei was confused and wondered, "Where is the master?" Suddenly Logan appeared right behind him, with a look full of mystery. He whispered softly, "I've been waiting for you, Wei." The sudden appearance made Wei shriek in terror. He fell to the ground, his heart wanting to jump out of his chest from fear. Logan immediately changed his attitude. He stepped forward to massage Wei's shoulders and kindly asked, "You've been working so hard lately, haven't you?" Wei awkwardly replied that he was still fine, and that it was actually the young master who was working much harder. Logan sighed emotionally, lamenting that he was on the verge of collapse due to the weak efforts, and expressed empathy for the hardship of his subordinates. Logan pointed out that the family budget was slowly hitting a wall after the war, and he was struggling to pay everyone's salary. Touched by Logan's thoughtfulness towards the administrative officials, Wei's eyes welled up with emotion. Wei regretted that previously he had misunderstood the young master. He silently appreciated the depth of Logan's heart. Suddenly, Logan looked straight at Wei and asked a very sensitive question about whether his nightly activities weren't going well due to being overworked. Too embarrassed, Wei hurriedly tried to leave, but Logan quickly held him back. "Wait, hear me out first." He brought out a small black pill and introduced it. "I'll give you this." Logan insisted that this was a product patented by the Philip Trading Guild, and just one pill would show magical results instantly, even though, in his heart, Logan hadn't even tried this medicine himself. He was still excited to gift it to Wei as a special present. At first, Wei looked at the pill in his hand with a dazed expression and pondered for a moment. Then the sound of rushed footsteps echoed through the hallway, and Wei burst in breathless and drenched in sweat. Rick asked anxiously, why? He was running for his life like that. Wei only managed to scream in extreme excitement. "How much, young master? How much does that medicine cost?" Wei shouted desperately, as if he had just found the light of his life. Seeing the manager's uncontrollably joyful expression, Logan wore a sinister smile, silently cheering in his heart. It worked. Rick, standing to the side, could only break into a cold sweat. Seeing the manager's expression of uncontrollable glee, Logan wore a sinister smile, cheering inwardly it was a success. Rick, standing nearby, could only break out in a cold sweat. "Are you even listening to me, Logan?" I asked, feeling anxious. Instead of answering, he just coldly motioned for Wei to hand him something. Wei immediately stood at attention, his face suddenly turning so serious that even Logan hesitated to call him by name. Thrilled by the brilliant results of the first trial, Logan started scouting for other men facing the same hard-to-talk-about issues to continue testing his product. He approached Heiko, the commander of the Knights, and dropped a cryptic hint. "Heiko, I've heard a rumor that you and your wife have been arguing quite a bit lately, haven't you?" That question hit the nail on the head. Heiko jumped in surprise. "What? Who on earth started that rumor?" Not giving him a chance to argue, Logan made his move. "Try this." He firmly shoved the pill into Heiko's mouth, making the commander his second test subject. The moment he swallowed it, a surge of fiery energy erupted inside him. His eyes widened in shock as he felt his strength returning. Logan casually commanded, "Get to your wife quickly." He didn't forget to add a reassuring smile. "I won't tell my father anything." Heiko beamed, his face lighting up with satisfaction as he bowed gratefully. "Thank you, my lord." The commander barked out, "I'm taking the rest of the day off," and then bolted like a whirlwind. Watching his subordinate vanish, Logan started thinking about the third test subject, and that was none other than his own father, Lord Patrick Macklin. Faced with the undeniable efficacy of the medicine, the dignified lord couldn't help but blush, murmuring a shy admission, "It's very effective." Logan walked away thinking to himself, "Sorry, Ronan, I might be giving you a younger sibling soon." Seeing the overwhelming effect of the medicine he had just created, he couldn't help but smile smugly. Just then, Rick rushed over pleading, "Wait, please, why won't you? Let me try it." Seeing Logan remained indifferent, Rick shouted, frustrated, "I work hard too, you know." Logan stopped and looked at his manservant with such disdain that Rick snapped, "What is that look supposed to mean?" Logan calmly turned away, delivering a lethal blow that twisted the knife in Rick's heart. "You don't have anyone to use it with." Rick froze, stunned by the jab at his bachelor status, only able to stutter. What did you say, young master?" Afterwards, Logan contacted Philip through the magic orb. He confidently asserted, "It's settled. I think people will be in need and will come looking for it, especially since it works." When Philip, Asked about the price, Logan didn't hesitate to drop a staggering number: 100 gold coins per pill. 1,000 for 10. The extortionate price left Philip stunned. Do you really think nobles in the capital will trust it and pay that much? Logan was firm. Yes, I believe it will sell. Relying on his memories from his past life, he knew well that nobles used to fight over this medicine at sky-high prices, and producing it in small quantities would only make it even more expensive. Philip agreed, but Logan added a condition. If a famous person uses it and proves its effectiveness, that would be even better. Philip started considering finding a prominent noble who needed this medicine to serve as a model. Logan immediately brushed it off. No need to advertise, just let the rumors spread in. Secret, and they'll come swarming like bees. Philip came up with another idea. Then how about a party in the capital? Hearing this, Logan's expression changed instantly to one of disgust. A party? You're telling me to go to a party? In his heart, Logan absolutely loathed those lavish places because the only party he ever attended was the Mercenary's victory banquet. However, Philip remained persistent, arguing that parties were the best way to build connections to serve their business. Philip suggested a bold plan. You could sell the medicine yourself during the party. Logan was stunned, wondering, I sell it myself, from being a socialite to a live streamer. Who would have thought? Philip frantically warned him that refusing parties would leave the Macklin family completely isolated from the upper class. But Logan was resolute. Of course not. I'm never going because I don't like it. Instead, he asked Philip to look into an information broker in the capital Grandia. To the other man's curiosity, Logan flashed a mysterious smile, declaring he was going there and would explain everything later. Philip could only sweat bullets, feeling a bad omen looming. Exactly 1 week later, Logan had officially set foot in the capital of Grandia, to Philip's astonishment. My lord, you really came? Philip asked nervously if Logan had asked his family for permission. He nonchalantly confirmed he had already handled it. Looking at the carriage carrying 2,000 boxes of goods without any guards accompanying them, Philip couldn't help but worry that Logan would run into big trouble on the road. Logan mused to himself that the fact his father let him go so easily was surely thanks to his resounding victories in the recent war. Philip still couldn't stop wondering if it was really okay for a young noble master to travel alone like this. Logan sharply cut him off, asserting that having guards around only made him feel more uncomfortable, and demanded they focus on the main task. Looking at the boxes of goods, he silently remembered Rick, who was bearing a heavy burden back at the territory. Logan recalled the image of his manservant, who always devotedly did everything for him in both lives, even though he always complained about the foul smell of the medicine that made even those around him not dare to get close. That smell was enough to make the whole castle maintain a safe distance. Rick once grumbled that Logan was trying to ruin his chances of getting a wife, and wondered if the 1 pill per person production process was really feasible. Logan silently sent a sincere thank you for Rick's quiet sacrifices. He clenched his fist, full of determination, and loudly announced he had made an important decision. Seeing Logan's excited face, Philip once again felt a premonition of a disaster about to happen. Logan excitedly announced, to appreciate Rick's hard work, the name of this medicine from now on will be Empiric. Let's use that name. This bizarre name left Philip completely speechless. His face darkened in utter helplessness at the young master's terrible naming sense. Just after setting foot in the capital, Philip suggested they both go to a bar to rest after the long journey, but Logan immediately dismissed it, fearing that public places would have eavesdroppers. However, Philip insisted it was the perfect place to discuss sensitive matters. He announced that he had completed the investigation and handed Logan a file. Seeing the figure of 900 gold coins for information fees, Logan paused slightly, asking if it was really worth that much. After reviewing it carefully, he admitted the quality of the information was entirely worth it and was confident he would soon recoup the investment if this information was accurate. Philip proudly affirmed he had followed instructions and started listing 3 potential target groups: first, nobles who had been married for 10 years but had no children; second, those with mistresses or lovers; and finally, nobles who were desperately looking for supplements to improve their bedroom life. Extremely satisfied, Logan showered Philip with endless praise for his hard work on both the investigation and previous tasks. Philip responded with humility, though he couldn't quite hide his underlying anxiety. Upon hearing the news that Logan had joined the war a bit late, he only felt truly relieved once he learned everything had ended smoothly. That evening, Logan quietly mused that he now had his own worries to deal with. Especially when thinking about the massive stockpile of monster meat, he wondered who would be willing to pay for all that stock. While Philip was still grumbling and complaining, Logan suddenly smacked him on the head with a rolled-up parchment, making Philip yelp in pain. Logan steered the conversation back to the main point, asking who would be the most suitable first customer on the list. After a moment of deep thought, Philip pointed to a specific name and suggested this person. "How about him?" Logan looked at the list, muttering, "This guy." Right after that, the scene shifted to a lavish high society party where nobles were clinking glasses and chatting lively under glittering chandeliers. The first target had been identified. It was Count David. In the middle of the magnificent hall, Count David was sipping his drink when he suddenly froze, stunned by the appearance of a strange guest. Logan approached. Wearing a gaudy, somewhat bizarre outfit, he spoke clearly. "Greetings, Count. I am Logan Macklin, the eldest son of the Macklin family from the southwest of the continent." Seeing Logan's somewhat countrified appearance, David couldn't help but break into a cold sweat from embarrassment, awkwardly replying, "I see. You are the new guest. Welcome to the capital." The nobles around them began whispering and gossiping. They mocked the flamboyant style of dress typical of the Southwest that he was wearing. Amidst the sarcasm, Logan maintained a calm, confident expression. He was secretly pleased that Philip's plan had worked perfectly. This outfit was the ideal shield to keep annoying people away, helping him focus entirely on his only goal at this party. Count David was a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Finance of the Grandia Kingdom. Despite having been married since the age of 20, he still hadn't managed to have a single child. Logan, recalling his past life, remembered that this count had been the center of a shocking tragedy when he decided to commit suicide simply because his wife had humiliated him right in front of a crowd. In Logan's memory, David's wife had screamed bitterly in front of everyone, "Are you done flirting with others? You can't even get it up." This very insult, aimed directly at his manhood, caused a nobleman who valued his reputation like David to completely collapse and choose to end his own life. Looking at the man trying to maintain an air of dignity in front of him, Logan understood that this was the perfect customer meeting, all the conditions to be the first one to open the shop. Logan began to approach with clever social pleasantries. "I came to the capital for business. After hearing of your reputation, I wanted to get to know you." David took a sip of his wine, acting condescendingly, mocking that in Grandia there was nothing you couldn't find, and surely a hick from the countryside like Logan only came here to buy things that his poor backwater region couldn't provide. Despite the giggles and mockery from the young ladies nearby, Logan suddenly smirked with a sinister look. He looked straight into David's eyes and playfully declared, "Oh no, I'm selling an item that I'm sure you don't have here. It's very good for men." Logan leaned close to Count David's ear and whispered a shocking line, "It's a type of aphrodisiac." This sentence was like a bolt of lightning striking directly into David's pride, leaving him frozen in shock with wide, terrified eyes. David screamed, "Good heavens, a son of a noble family selling aphrodisiacs!" He roared in anger, causing the ladies nearby to start whispering and gossiping.